breakfast sandwich.
We're recording. So I had something to say on the record,
Please do.
and now I don't.
Now it's left the brain.
I looked at my phone for about 5 seconds, and it's just completely fucking Men in Black style fried my brain.
You got the
Self-Watergate.
Yeah, totally. And I do this often, so it actually that's sort of interesting. I'm constantly trying to forget. It seems,
You're constantly trying to forget.
I'm doing this all the time. I'm
to wipe in you and start fresh.
I mean, that's a nice way to put it. Like a baptism, rebirth.
I'm glad we're tapping into religion less than 2 minutes into the pod.
That's what we're talking about.
Awesome, good. Are you religious?
Religious?
You seem like a spiritual man.
Spiritual, certainly. And I've no problem with religion. I want to say yes. I just want to answer earnestly here.
Please do.
With integrity. And religious is still quite a vague term. I would like to have more religion in my life. I would like to be religious in everything I do, whether it be literally religion or have a religious approach to my work or my relationships.
Yep.
Making the bed, my diet, I don't know, whatever. Sorry, I'm going to finish this text.
No, please finish your text.
Absolutely no worries at all.
For those listening and not watching, you may have noticed that Luke is far more intellectual this week.
Yes.
Not that Luke isn't normally intellectual, but religion is not a common topic for Mr. Kidgell. But God, what an honour it is to upgrade the topics of conversation sometimes.
Let's get into theology. So I'm not, really I'm not the authority to talk about this, but I've been staying. I was telling you before I came down to Melbourne to do the Spike Fuck show.
Yep.
Been staying with Spike whilst I've been down here. Spike actually did I don't know if this is public knowledge or is private. I don't know.
Again, we have the power of the edit.
It's not dicey to me.
Okay.
And shouldn't be to anyone, I wouldn't think. But did a degree in theology.
Really? Like a multi-year arts degree?
Yeah, except not some bullshit like arts, but something with a bit of weight to it in theology. And we've been sitting around. This is what basically this.
I was going to say,
this is what Spike and I did on the couch.
No microphones.
No microphones. No potential to upset anyone except for each other.
God, it sounds like Kirin on the Dubbo episode when we were staying in the cabin. I was literally
about to say, you and Spike in Melbourne is like what we do on the veranda at the Dubbo Zoo on tour.
Yeah.
Oh.
That's a frequent destination and place of rest for us. I don't know if you've ever been to Dubbo. Have you ever been to Dubbo?
I have been to Dubbo.
Oh. Sorry, we're trying to ask you questions while he's tapping away.
I shouldn't be texting it.
No, please text.
It was an unfinished business that I...
No,
that's okay, mate. I have a history of this pod of using Hinge while on record.
He legitimately will glance across at Blake mid-conversation and he's swiping
so
at Hinge.
That's interesting. I mean, it's already presenting to that this podcast episode is going to be less of a podcast and more of an intervention.
Yes.
We're talking about religion, spirituality, and then the next one that come up is your sort of shameless addiction to dating apps and presumably sex.
Yes.
Mainly. Well, you've nailed him pretty quickly. Well done. No, I thought, man.
Now we're talking about nailing, which is both a euphemism for the sex thing and the religion thing.
It's contextually applicable at any point.
Nail you to the cross this morning.
Is already the best episode of the podcast yet. This is so tough.
Well, my point is, though, is that you really should have Spike on if you want to talk religion,
Right.
I would love to.
I'll give it a red hot go. And I can talk about it from my own personal sort of anecdotal position, but I'm no authority.
Yep. I don't think you need to be an authority.
I think there's only one authority.
There is only one authority.
Yeah, that is true. Well placed. We should probably do introductions.
Yeah. Welcome back to the BLT podcast, episode 90 whatever. Very special guest this episode. Luke is on hiatus, still in America. He's doing shows. I'm sure they're still...
He's crushing.
He's
nailing them.
Yep, he's in Chicago having a deep dish pizza right now.
Lucky boy.
It's good shit.
And we are joined by musician, multi-instrumentalist, actor,
Blake
savant.
Pavey. Oh, sorry. Welcome.
As well as Kirin J Callinan. Yes. Thanks for coming on the pod. What an honour.
I'm sorry. I think it's because I'm being recorded right now. I'm feeling an urge to record back. Sort
No,
of like,
please do.
No.
You know, recording police or something who have their body cam on and you
Yeah.
film
Yeah.
them. This is just a safety.
There's no, please, keep it up.
I guess
Keep it
for
up.
me,
You know,
please. I've got my
actually-
own version of events, depending on how you guys cut this up.
I will be editing this in the most crucifying way of you now
So
to stay on
Yeah.
topic with the religion thing.
Yeah.
Make sure you get some shots of the WWE action figures,
Yes,
the
please.
Strawny DVD.
The
There's no
WWE, you will realise, is the closest thing we have to religion on this podcast
so true.
in any way, shape, or form.
So true. But no, Kirin, you're in town. You're usually based in Sydney, correct?
Yes, I'm born and raised in Sydney.
Born and raised in
I'm
Sydney.
just going to also now send this to someone that, in case something happens.
No,
to the
please
phone.
do.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
It's funny you mentioned that. Blake, often he, as one of Blake's longest running gags,
What's that called? Sorry to interrupt you. What is that called? Where someone is your
it's like a safe,
your
your emergency contact, but it's not. It's like a,
Yeah,
it's
if
like,
if you're blackmailing someone, you've got copies of the documents with someone else, and they are called your.
your,
Nixons.
Yeah.
your co-host. That's what I call them. Say your Nixons. Yeah, nice. Nah, Blake likes to, every time he gets in an Uber from wherever he's going, he lists me as his emergency contact. So my phone will vibrate and alert me when Blake is leaving somewhere and arriving somewhere.
Usually from Yaya's back to home.
Yeah, from Yaya's back to-
Emergency contact, that'll do it.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
And then I think I'm happy now. I think I feel safe.
Yeah.
And so
And
I'm
just
gonna-
before we get too deep into it, sorry to do some admin on you, Kirin, but just get as close to that microphone as you.
True.
Yeah, that's okay. We will be fine.
Yeah.
But no, you're here ahead of a gig in Melbourne at the Curtain, I believe, Friday.
The Curtain on Friday.
I've secured my tickets. How
Let's
about
go.
you, Blakey?
Mate, I've got Blake and friends, but
yeah.
I'll happily
Comedy
head
festival.
over. What time does it kick off?
You'll be on late, right?
Yeah, I can't tell you off the top of my head the show times, but I can.
We have so much in common already, man.
What I can say is there's 2 support acts.
Yep.
Which normally I wouldn't dare have more than one, if any, ideally. Like,
Why is that?
Well, practical reasons like changeover
True.
and gear on stage and
Does get annoying.
the
You're
logistics of the sound check. The more people, it's just more annoying. But
Yeah.
then also, ego.
Yeah.
You want all the attention.
Yeah, but it's. I think it's just cleaner when there's one support act, and then one headline act, or even just here's the show. Here it is.
Yeah, that is so true. Are you performing solo, or you don't have a band
I
with you
am
this week?
performing solo. So the show's happened off the back of a Sydney show that was meant to be in January.
Mm-hmm.
I was very ill. It got, I sound like I'm
No.
sort of
Mate,
no.
19 or 1800s kind of. I took ill.
Bedridden.
No, I was.
A doctor had
bedridden.
to like nail a hole in your ear to find out you have a cold. That sort of energy.
Yeah.
But yeah, we got the leeches out, and
That's good.
No, I did take ill and was very ill, and I've been really sick a few times already in the short space of this year.
Why is
or
that?
just not recovering. It could be something to do with the biochemical warfare that we've all been
That is-
subjected to for
No.
the past 5 years.
Great
But
call. I was just wondering if you also had a terminal autoimmune disease.
I'd probably do now.
Yeah.
Never before. Never really ever got sick before in my life.
You and Blake could be the same person.
Yeah.
Okay, so far, tick.
Yeah.
Nothing but ticks. But yeah, so you've rescheduled your show.
So I did the show
Yep.
eventually in February, and it still surprises me. I've been playing for over 20 years live now, either as Kirin J Callinan or with various other projects over the years.
Yep.
And I've estimated recently that I've done probably over 1,000 shows in my life.
Yeah. Do you track them? Not really, no.
As in make a record?
Yeah.
No, but I've been thinking about trying to go back through all the way back to MySpace and Facebook and whatever else, emails, I guess, and trying to catalogue them.
Yeah, it's
And
something
that would be
that-
Because I
interesting.
know that's something Luke does. Every gig he just writes it down in his notes, and then I found that out probably 2 years after doing comedy. I was like, that would have been good to do.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
Luke's been
but
doing
I-
it since he was doing like open mics, basically.
Yeah.
All around that era of when
Yes.
we because Luke and I went to high school together.
Yeah.
And so he did like community radio, and then probably a year or two after we graduated, which was 10 years ago now, he started doing stand-up and logging it.
There you go.
And every time he does a show, he writes it down.
Well, I think just the memories that would come flooding back. You know, I love the idea of one day, you know, regardless of whether anyone's interested, writing a memoirs. The problem with that is I don't remember anything.
Yeah.
I always think about that when you read like a biography.
Yeah, how
did you remember?
Shit, this is completely made up.
Yeah, exactly right.
Honestly, I don't remember. Like, I had to even think what I had for breakfast this morning, and I haven't had any breakfast, and that's why I couldn't remember it. To be fair, but I don't remember, let alone the intimate details or the minutiae of some interaction or how I was feeling and let alone then trying to paint that picture.
No, and write it down accurately.
Yes.
And
I think you maybe just have to keep a diary.
Yeah, that's probably the best way to do it. Well, as someone who's been a fan of yours for a long, long time, I don't want to glaze too hard, but this is like,
Please.
For me, this is like having Paul McCartney on the podcast. This is actually better than Paul McCartney.
I was going to say that's quite offensive.
He is the worst Beatle. No, this is like, for me, this is so exciting. I've been thinking since you agreed to come on, how can I properly structure or ask you questions that paint a picture to an audience or maybe people listening who don't know who you are, the story of the artists that I've followed and loved for many, many years now. And I first jumped on board, I think it was just after Bravado came out in 2017, your second solo album.
Yep. Actually, kind of the third.
Is it really?
Yeah, but the first one was not a studio album like Bravado or Embracism.
What was the first?
It was called Am I a Woman Yet?
Am I a Woman Yet? Is that before Embracism?
Before Embracism.
That came out in 2013?
Came out 2013. Before I'm a Woman Yet was a sort of compilation of home recordings that I'd done between the years of, honestly, going back to 2006.
Wow. So that's not available anywhere to the public, is it?
I don't know. I found a copy of it recently. I used to just burn it, so it was just little home recordings, and some of the songs and ideas on it ended up on Embracism. It was also, I'd burn it on CD myself, and then the artwork was printed, on my black and white printer at home. Like, this is, I'm showing some age, I suppose, but it was, I would change the order of the songs on each, just sort of randomize the order of the
track
listing, but would maintain the same track listing written out on the artwork.
Really?
As a deliberate attempt to confuse or even create argument if there was any discussion about it online about what song was what, or people like this song.
So people would come like a show.
You like that song? Yeah, exactly. Each song name was, and a bunch of songs were instrumental. All the song titles had no correlation with the lyric.
Yeah.
So
that is so funny.
That's great.
That was the idea.
Just to stir up a bit of discussion.
Yeah, I don't know. It was just
I
think it was probably based out of that I couldn't decide on the order,
Okay.
and so then just went with randomizer. Yeah.
Interesting.
That's great.
So I thought I've got a bunch of questions for you, but I thought, how can I make an interview with someone else about me?
Yes.
So
Perfect.
I've structured it in a way where and I would love to, if any stories or any of your work, any ideas come up throughout this that you want to interject with, I would love to hear it. But I've kind of structured it around the work of yours that has kind of landed with me the most over the years.
Okay.
Or how I
And by the
follow
way,
along.
I just remembered what I wanted to say on record.
Oh, please do.
lovely.
Yeah, I'd love to hear
It's
it.
not that interesting, but I just wanted to clarify that there is absolutely nothing I'm not willing to talk
Really?
about.
That's so exciting.
In fact, I feel like I probably, for the first time, have the distance and clarity to talk about things that I previously might not have been able to, or certainly not willing to talk about. And this is probably just after Spike and I's conversation last night, where we spoke candidly across a range of heady subjects, and it felt great, and I slept wonderfully afterwards. And happy to talk about anything is my point.
That's
Beautiful.
amazing.
Yeah.
Well, you've had
you very much.
an opening of the mind's eye, and I'm not talking about Wolf Mother deep cuts here.
No. But there's a great. Is that a Wolf Mother album?
No, it's a song.
It's a song.
From
What
the
is it?
first album.
Is it? How's it go?
Come and see the mind's eye.
I knew you were going to be good at singing that.
You caught me. Red-handed.
There's also a great Thomas Dolby album called Gateway to the Mind's Eye.
Oh, really? Thomas Dolby. What
Yeah.
era is this album from?
90s. It's I think it's a soundtrack to some, bizarre film piece
Wow.
thing I've not seen. But it's got this amazing song on it called Near Earth Object. It's an acronym for. And it's just really good.
Well,
that's a hot tip.
Kirin's putting you on.
Yeah.
You've put me onto some great songs over the years just via your Instagram stories.
Okay.
And I went back to one the other night. What a killer track. The Sexual Loneliness of Jesus Christ.
It's a very good one.
Is it
Bonus.
Jackie Levin?
No, sorry. Yeah, you're right. Jackie Levin, not
Yeah,
Bonus.
Jackie Levin.
Jackie Levin.
It's so lovely to see, like, probably unbeknownst to you, you put Tyler onto a lot of shit, and it's good to see because Tyler puts a lot of shit onto me.
Yeah.
So it's good to
Okay.
see the cycle now.
This is the cycle.
The cycle of
Because
abuse.
I will be, because in all honesty, I met Tyler and I had 2 albums downloaded, and it was just Hosier's first self-titled album and whatever the main Kings of Leon album was.
Okay,
And that's
the
about
one with Sex on Fire.
yeah. And I only listen to really that song on it, but I'm just like, immaculate album. I go to use somebody if I'm feeling frisky that day. If I'm like, I'm just trying to branch
Let's
out my
switch it
palette
up.
musically.
Okay, well, let's tap into some Kirin lore. So let's go back to the top. Do you remember, was there a moment for you where you're like, oh, I want to do music. Music is the thing for me. It's how I want to express myself. Was there an album, a song? What kind of started that for you?
I think it was probably before that. I mean, my dad's a musician.
Yes.
And played in a number of bands and still does. So in a way, it's just the family business. But in terms of an event that I recall, I think it was probably picking up an acoustic guitar in primary school. And I'm sure this wasn't exactly the case, but in my childish memory of it, I could pick it up and just sort of I knew how to play it already.
You mean just string together melodies?
Yeah, I sort of could do this fake flamenco thing, as like a 10-year-old.
Yeah.
And then would do that in the playground in primary school. And for the first time ever have people sitting around
And watching it be like,
watching
whoa, this is
exactly
sick.
and excited by it and that feeling pretty powerful and that was got me going. So
Yeah, I feel like that's a moment.
formative, yeah,
a moment that musicians experience. I remember when I learned what a guitar tab was, and it was just like, oh, you just put one finger here and one there, and then I could play every
Opens it
Green
up.
Day song.
Yeah, exactly.
And my brothers I'm one of 4 boys. My brothers and I would just constantly berate each other. It was never supportive. But I remember my brothers being like, whoa, that actually sounds like that song. And I was like,
I mean, that's huge.
yeah, I was like, that's some validation. That's crazy. And then from there it was like,
We do have some through lines too, because that Green Day Dookie album was big for me. I used to draw I don't know if you remember the artwork, the Explosion.
yeah, with all the little
with all
drawings
the
and stuff
people
scattered around.
Yeah, I used to draw that often, or my version of that. Got that explosion down pat, and I would draw pictures. I'm sure this is a very common thing for kids, but a UFO here and whatever.
Yeah.
This full sort of tableau scene based off that album cover.
There you
And I
go.
think I probably did the same thing. Learnt most of those songs on guitar tab.
Yeah.
Guitar tab.
And then it just takes off from there. So your first sort of, or the band that most people sort of know you for was Mercy Arms, right?
Initially, yeah.
And so how old were you when Mercy Arms started?
Maybe either 18 or just turned 19.
Okay. And you just play guitar in that band? You weren't the vocalist?
Not
or?
the lead vocalist, or the lead songwriter. Probably why I even started a solo thing was just an outlet during my time in that band where my songs were being directly refused.
Yes.
The singer Tom, there was no shortage of reasons why he couldn't sing my songs. Probably just because he just didn't want to. But,
Okay. Weird.
or that it wasn't Mercy Arms or some delusional weird thing. But
Yeah.
so that was a blessing in disguise. I did a little bit of vocals in the band, and some few spoken word monologues and other sort of embarrassing, frankly, things. So when I look back on it,
I'm sure they were pretty sick.
I don't know. I haven't listened to a lot of it. A lot of Mercy Arm stuff's not even on streaming.
Yeah.
I think our best stuff we never even released in any capacity.
It is always interesting to go back to that time, that, especially as the years go by, and figure out the growing pains of like learning to write songs and play shows.
I should revisit it really. Like I feel a bit icky about it, but I'm sure it's actually quite cute. And would be interesting for me as
well, it's going to be a chapter in the biography one day, so you got to tap in eventually.
You're right. I'm going to have to go back and listen to it and take myself back to that place.
So then, around what time did Mercy Arms sort of dissolve?
It was 2009.
Okay.
Big Day Out. We were playing the Big Day Out tour around the country.
Who was on that lineup? Do you remember?
The Prodigy, because I was hanging out with them a bit, and at the final after party, so after our last show in Perth, me and Keith had a sort of dance off, surrounded by other artists and people at the party.
Clapping you
sort of going one for one, like dance battle.
That's so sick.
And I destroyed him as well. Fair enough, though. He was kind of an older guy.
Yeah, he came out victorious.
That's what the Macklemore song was based off, dude.
Dance off. He was there.
Yeah. Maybe, honestly. I know Arctic Monkeys played.
Yep.
Because during what would become our last ever show, the singer Tom said on stage actually that it was our last show, and this was news to the rest of us in the band.
Really?
And I remember all of us kind of looking at each other going, wait, what?
Was there any trouble behind the scenes or anything like that?
The whole time.
Really?
It was a very uncomfortable, awkward,
were these
toxic band to be in.
Really? Were they guys you went to school with, or just people you met trying to get into?
One was a friend of mine since I was 14. Didn't go to school together, but played soccer together.
Okay, yep.
And, were joined at the hip. And then the bass player, I actually did go to school with him, but he was a couple of years older than us. And the singer, met him at a show. He came up to my friend Julian and asked me if he played instruments, and he said, yeah, he played drums. I came back from the bar, so I'm 18 years old at this stage, and I said that I played the keyboards for some reason, because I really don't, and I certainly didn't. And then he organised for us to have a jam. I went round to his house. He'd set up his keyboards for me. I sort of
winged it,
tinkered along for a while, and then I was like, oh, look, I lied to you, but I do play. I can actually play the guitar. And then we went busking. It was Christmas Eve.
Oh my god!
And we made a bit of money, and that was enough for us to go. Let's. And he had songs too. He was sort of very naturally, kind of savant-like actually in his ability to just churn out a complete and quite melodic song, even if it was, he'd hear a song, Rolling Stones or the Smiths, and just recreate.
Yeah, just steal the song.
Yeah. It was still masterfully done, actually.
But that's kind of like, especially when you're young. Like I remember I listened to it was like 2016. Frank Ocean's Blonde just came out. I was obsessed with it. So I was like, damn, this guy's using these weird chord progressions. And then I did what you described not wanting to do, and I went back and listened to some old demos.
Yeah, you just lifted these ideas.
Correct. And I just was like, I stole that chord progression from Frank Ocean, but I played it with a guitar.
Everyone does it.
Even in comedy as well. I look back to like my first tour, and then I was like, massive Mark Maron fan, and I'm just copying his cadence and using a stool if I want to get introspective on stage and sit down.
You can't help it really, and it's, I suppose when it's direct and artless plagiarism. There's a problem, but when you're inspired and that's your departure point, and and you're going to hopefully have some unique perspective or spirit of your own that then twists it into something new and different, and even muddies the the tracks and you don't even, it could feel completely original. You know, I'd like to think I'm quite an original artist.
Oh yeah,
and I probably more so than most, if just being honest.
For me personally, and again, I'm going to try not to glaze you too hard,
Dude, I saw that massive dick. I was like,
in the music video. We're not talking about what Kirin did when he showed up before the pod recorded.
No.
We're talking about a music video.
Yeah. But I did want to say, before you do throw some generous compliments my way, just because I remembered it and I haven't thought about this a while, that last show, Big Day Out, 2009, Mercy Arms last show, we heard the singer say, this is our last show, and we were a bit confused, but we continued on, and then we finished the show, and the singer walks off stage, takes his guitar off, and throws it into the arms of Alex Turner from Arctic Monkeys, who's standing side of stage, who sort of catches this guitar awkwardly, and he says to him quite dramatically, "You keep it, man. I won't be needing this anymore."
So you guys are like, well, this guy's got aura now forever. He can quit the band. The band's over.
I know, we laughed. Like, I laughed. Like, I thought that was pathetic. But like pretty amazing in retrospect. But
no, it would have pissed me off too.
It's the crash out scene in the eventual biopic.
Yeah, that's so true.
Yeah, it felt so. Staged.
It's like pre-planned, pre-thought out.
Yeah, he took it and threw it into his arms. He kind of caught it, and I brought it up with Alex years later, who I don't know well by any stretch of the imagination, but ended up meeting him years later, and brought it up, and he had absolutely no recollection of that ever happening.
That's so funny.
I'm questioning whether that did happen.
No, it happened.
No, it did. I remember seeing it. Unless it was someone else and I thought it was, I don't know.
To get the glaze out before we continue, for me personally, as a big music fan, someone who has kept up with Australian music, especially for a long time, when I think of like two people who have completely original voices or sounds, I think of you and Gareth Lydiard of the Drones.
That's good. I was
and
like,
Tropical
kind of
Fluxon.
terrified who this other person was going to be here. Like,
no. That's for me. Two people who I'm like, everything you guys do, I'm like, whatever you release next is going to be something that I will listen to it the first time and be like, where the fuck are you pulling this from? And then as I listen to it more and more, I'm like, okay, I'm understanding this, and
well, that's good. I mean, Gareth is very literary and absolutely singular. So that's a huge compliment for me.
Yeah. Oh, good. I'm glad. Okay, so Mercy Arms, that dissolves in 2009.
Yep.
Now, the next thing for me that I think of as far as work you've done, and if there's anything in between this and then that you would like to interject with, it's Jack Ladder and the Dreamlanders, Hurtsville, 2011. Album comes out, and I think I was in year 9 then, so I wasn't around or too into music when it dropped. But
and
now,
also, probably, and with good reason, that would be completely inappropriate for you, a 14-year-old you. The themes on that record, they're not for you.
Again, absolutely incredible album that I think now is looked back on or appreciated massively as a real classic of like Australian indie rock and music. What was the formation of the Dreamlanders with Jack Ladder and the writing of that album? Because you just played guitar on it, correct?
Yes, essentially. But there is a genesis story, and there's a whole thing that takes place to make that.
Because you were quite young, 2011.
Yeah, I'm still, do the maths, I'm still 24.
Yeah, that album. You listen to that and the work on it with the guitar tones and stuff like that. Again, speaking of singular things that I can trace back to you, the way you make your guitar sound is so unique and interesting that I can hear you as a guitarist pop up on other people's songs and go, "Fuck, Kirin's cooking on this."
That's very nice.
So like, we'll get to like Genesis Owusu and all that stuff later, but that still, like, your work on Hurtsville. Thinking like you were 24, I'm like, fuck, I've got so much catching up to do, man.
No. Things happen in your own time, and I wouldn't say I've really didn't have any major breakthrough artistically until much later anyway. But that was, this was me working with artists that were older than myself as
Yes.
well. And
Well, let's go through the Dreamlanders as
Yeah.
well. So you got Jack Ladder fronting the band.
Yep.
And then it was you, Donny Benet.
Yep.
Was he on bass?
Donny Benet on the bass guitar.
And Lawrence Pike, was
Lawrence
it on the drum?
Pike on drums. And
Yes.
that was the core of the band at that stage, or that was the band. Neil Sutherland joined some years later on keys, but
Yeah.
making that record, that was the band plus Burke Reed.
Yeah, which was crazy because when I kind of finished high school, Luke and I finished in 2014, coming out of it and kind of learning who you were in 2017 after Bravado came out. My friends were putting me onto Donny Benet's music
Yep.
as a thing, and I was like, dude, this guy's got so much charisma, and he makes this fucking awesome, like, sort of. It depends on the album, but like 80s inspired, super funky, super like sexual in ways.
He's a pig.
He's a pig.
It's disgusting.
But he's got this amazing look, you know. He's got like the crazy hairline, the sick mustache.
Well, I can tell you some. I don't want to sell the mystery and magic.
oh, well, you feel
But
free
he's
to
the
not.
maverick, Donny Benet.
He's the man.
And so I don't want to, I don't want to look behind the curtain too much.
Oh, well, I don't want to see behind the curtain.
Yeah, no. But the let's just say the growth of and the flowering of the character that is Donny Benet has been quite something to behold.
Really?
From meeting
2011.
the Don early on. Well, even so, I joined the Dreamlanders. Well, it wasn't called the Dreamlanders at the time. I joined Jack Ladder in 2009. So
Oh, wow. So was that after or before Mercy
so
Arms
right
finished?
after Mercy Arms. Mercy
Wow.
Arms finishes. Big Day Out, 2009. Tom throws his guitar to Alex Turner. I have a dance off with Keith from The Prodigy. Band's kaput. I go back to Sydney, and I'm living with my girlfriend's parents at the time. We'd moved in there after, we'd lived in the Cross. As soon as I could move out of home, finished high school, moved straight to King's Cross, lived for 5 years or so in the Cross. And then we went to her parents' place for her to save money, to move to LA, for her to pursue her acting career. And she did. She left. And I just sort of stayed and played video games with her dad for a few months.
Sick.
That's awesome. Perfect relationships exist.
Yeah, he was the anchor man and of Sky News.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And he would do and a wonderful man, a wonderful family. But he would do the, early morning news spot, I suppose.
Straight on Sky
and he'd
News.
be coming back home around about lunchtime, and about the time I'm sort of waking up and crawling out of bed, and him and I would just sit on the couch and play video games.
Was Sky News at the time as... Well, because at the moment, I don't know now, it's kind of known as like the right wing or like
I guess it probably always was, but it was a different climate.
Yes.
In what news, it wasn't, everything wasn't as reactionary and
Yes.
and they weren't going on rants about like wokeness or something.
No, not to say anything against his character. I'm just,
No, I mean, I don't know. I didn't watch it.
Yeah, of
it
course,
didn't
yeah.
really interest me.
Yep.
But
That's so funny.
so I was after the band ended doing nothing, just like living at my girlfriend's parents' house, and she's not even there, and just being like sort of fed by her mum and playing video games with her dad. And
What was the plan? Were you guys still together, even though she'd moved to
we're
LA?
still together. And I eventually went over there, and that's when we broke up. But this was just a sort of weird little sort of
What a nook.
dream time.
A nook in time.
Yeah, and then I got the call. So I wasn't doing anything, and I got the call. I was quite happy not doing anything. And I got the call from Johnny, who was Jack Ladder's manager, and I'd opened for Jack Ladder as a solo artist. I played at the Hopeton. He used to be the bass player in a band called Expatriate that Mercy Arms had played with a bunch. Amazing band, sort of in the vein of Interpol, which at the time was pretty fresh. And he was the best part of the band, frankly.
Yeah.
The songs were good, but he was the bass player, but he had the aura.
Yeah.
And then he sort of went solo and had his kind of a folk, blues, rock rockabilly thing that he was doing.
Because Jack Callinan, he'd already had an album.
2 albums.
Yeah, he had 2 albums out before Hurtsville.
And Donnie and Lawrence had played on that second album of his too. The first was just an acoustic record for the most part. So they were on the eve of touring that album, Love Is Gone. It had a couple of sort of Triple J hits on it. The Barber's Son was one of them. And I think he'd won Best Newcomer at the Australian Music Prize. It was all sort of happening.
Yeah, yeah.
And then right on the eve of his tour, my understanding of the story is he was recoiling from some woman who was coming on to him at a bus shelter, as we've all been there.
And fighting him off.
And he's fallen back through the bus shelter. This guy's 6'7", smashed through the glass, broken his arm on the eve of his tour.
Oh my God.
So I couldn't play guitar. His managers contacted me, can you play guitar for the tour? I've listened to the record going, yeah, it's great, and I'm happy to, but I don't think I can play the songs in this style. And so I went in for a tryout, and Donnie, Lawrence and Tim, Jack Ladder, seemed more than willing to what's the word?
Just let you do your thing.
Let me do my thing in the context of the song, and even change the songs to facilitate this more sort of spatial sonic thing that I was doing.
That's awesome.
Then rhythmic bluesy thing. And so we went out on the road with this sort of new Roxy Music-esque kind of, sonic sound, and his fans hated it. We were redoing all of his songs as in a completely new style. But I think that's, Tim being Jack Ladder being the true artist he is, was excited by this and interested in what this was.
I think you have to, for me, when you record a song in the studio, it's a completely different beast once you start playing it in a room.
This song sounded, they had a new lease of life on them, I think, to him, and I mean, certainly for me, because it was all new. But anyway, I was accepted into the band, and then we did that first tour, which was just hysterical laughter, and it was the funnest I'd had playing music ever. After coming from what was a very toxic and pressure cooker situation with Mercy Arms Always, treading on eggshells, this was just. I was now the youngest in the band as well, as opposed to being one of the oldest, and I loved it. I genuinely felt I was playing in the best band in the world. We might have been for a moment.
I'm not going to lie. Again, as I said, when I discovered all of you guys in 2017, and then I found out about Hurtsville and the band on the band on the album and the lineup of this era, being all of these guys as individuals, that I was like, I love their music. I almost couldn't believe it. It was like a supergroup.
It is a supergroup act, frankly. I say that with no. This isn't egotistical. This is just the facts.
It's almost humble to say it.
Yeah.
Let me please you even more.
No, but honestly, if you know it, as a fan of Hurtsville, then I recommend my favorite personal, most sentimental, and also objectively favorite thing I've maybe ever been a part of. Of all the many records I've made or things I've collaborated on. My sentimental favourite, bar none, is the first Jack Ladder thing we did, which was actually before Hurtsville. There's an EP called Counterfeits, where off the back of the tour, we went into the studio and just recorded the live show.
Oh, wow.
And 5 of those songs, I wish that all of them came out, but because they were all amazing. But for whatever reason, 5 of those songs came out as an EP called Counterfeits, which is... speaks to the fact that we reinvented the Jack Ladder songs from the second album.
So it was previously released songs, but the live arrangements.
But the live arrangements, exactly. and performed live, no overdubs. Even the vocals are completely live. And it's just you can feel and hear the blossoming musical dynamic and the fun and the creativity and spontaneity in these performances. Plus for me, playing with Donnie and Lawrence in particular, who are proper jazz, they're freaks.
Yeah.
And that elevated what I could do and my ability to be expressive and reckless.
Damn, I didn't even know that existed.
It is on streaming, I think.
Yeah.
I have some CD versions of it somewhere too.
It's all right. I can pirate it.
Pirate it. But honestly, that's my favorite thing I've ever done.
Oh, shit. Well, that's funny you say that because all the music I've made has just been me with my laptop and guitar and synths and whatever, me doing it. But then to play the shows, I play in a 3-piece. And the other two dudes I play with, my drummer is he's like, oh, dude, Tool is the greatest thing ever. And
he's not wrong.
He's not wrong. Tool is incredible. Driving to Sydney last year to do our podcast and band show. And he was like, dude, he just played Tool's discography the whole drive up and back.
That's also brutal.
Yeah. and my girlfriend was in the car and she was like, what is going on?
No, not good for women.
I'm sure there are plenty of ladies who love Tool. My girlfriend, not one of them. But she copped it. And then my bassist is the same thing. Huge jazz influenced. He is it's like 3 completely different people coming together. And we did the same thing. I have a friend who he does sound engineering for theatre productions. Like he was on tour with like Mary Poppins and all these random shows.
On tour with Mary Poppins.
Yeah, exactly. Isn't that a random thing?
That'd be crazy backstage.
Yeah. He was doing like Harry Potter and the Cursed Child, like all these plays. But he is like a sweat for audio production. And he was like, I've just bought this tape machine and I've got all this stuff. So come over and I'll just cut the band live to tape. And we did the same thing like 2 months ago and we've recorded a bunch of songs from the set.
Yep.
So we're going to release the same thing. And I think it's like people listen to it and they don't even almost recognize the songs.
Yeah. But I mean, talking about, prior to this, your only real experience is doing stuff on the laptop. This is the great shame. In most of my records, that's more or less the process too. Even if there's really great musicians involved, it's something of, layering it up and cutting it together.
Yes.
And that's why this one EP is so sentimental to me. It's real music played by real people in a real space. Yeah, and that space is one of the instruments too, because things are bouncing around and there's an atmosphere, genuine, not in a figure of speech sense of there's an atmosphere to it. There's literally an atmosphere.
Yeah. It's kind of funny how putting yourself in a box and limiting yourself is more freeing.
This is where the good stuff happens. And I think more and more people are going to be, not to talk about this too much, and I'm, again, not an authority, but just my take on it is with the rise of AI or even forgetting AI, just music production. You can basically make yourself sound like you're the greatest, player or singer in the world. Everyone's lost faith or belief in, you don't believe when you hear a recording anymore that it's authentic. And so I think what is going to be craved more and more, and not that we should be trying to predict trends or something, but I just think what is most interesting and beautiful is something real happening in real time, warts and all, with the flaws. In fact, that's where the beauty comes in. Yeah. And that's with my new record, with things, I'm just started embarking on production jobs where I'm producing things for other people. I
saw you working with Civic. Great band.
We just made their first, not their first record, my first record as a producer. First full length.
The single was, what's the single? Covered in
Chrome Dipped.
Chrome Dipped, yeah.
Covered in
Chrome is fun, so.
Yeah. First single, Covered in Cum. It's a beautiful song, but off the album Chrome Dipped. No, they're a great band, and I got very lucky, to segue to that. I got very lucky that my first full-length album that I've produced was for a band that are really good, who brought really good songs that I had very little to do with that part of the process, and they could have been shithouse, and they're not. So I got lucky, but that's what's was most rewarding and beautiful about the process and end result is just something real happening and keeping that intact and not beating the life out of it, and just letting it be and accepting it for its flaws. And
oh mate, you crush it. The song's amazing. Sounds sick too. All right, well, let's jump from Jack Ladder then. So that's 2011 to your first solo. Well, not your first, I've now learned, but your first released, I guess you could say.
Yep.
Embracism.
First
2013
label release, first studio recording. Yeah.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but the way I think about Embracism is it's probably your most I want to say like conventionally as far as like band structure or instrument wise on the album, a lot of guitars,
Yep.
the drums. Just it feels like a rock album, I would say, but a lot of use of electronic sounds,
Yep.
drum machines, droning sounds throughout.
Yep.
Again, I don't want to like have you explain your music too much because I hate the thought of doing that. But I would love to talk about or ask for some inspiration on some of my favorite songs from the album.
Yes, great.
That's all right. So the title track, Embracism. Love the way lyrically you talk about like masculinity. Do you remember where you're at when you wrote that song?
Yes.
Or what was driving the writing of that song? And before we get into it, I just want to, obviously the structure of the song, Blakey, you're unfamiliar with the track, but the first verse basically describes, and sonically it's a very whirring sort of electronic strip back,
Yep.
and then it gets intense for the choruses.
Yep.
But Kirin is describing like a playground fight between a couple of boys and then older kids wanting more of that. And then the kind of recurring phrase is embrace and men embracing. And then I love this verse lyrically. It was so good. A man can meet another man in a bar, on the sports field, at his place of work, or in his own apartment, or on the internet right now. So turn, face, connect, embrace. I think that summary of masculinity and embracing one another. Where were you when you wrote that track, and what inspired that?
Thank you for the flattery, and I love to talk about myself and my work. So this is perfect.
I've been so excited to listen.
I should do more podcasts.
No, listen, you're not going to get this anywhere else, all right? This is just a BLT thing.
I think that I could get this elsewhere
Oh,
too.
no, you get this everywhere you go.
No, I am flattered. And I do remember exactly where I was. Quite literally, I was on a plane.
Yep.
I used to do most of my writing on planes, especially in the days before you could access internet on planes. It was a forced sobriety of distraction.
Yes.
And
Where were you living at the time? And how long did it take to record this album actually as well?
Sorry. About 6 months of actual solid recording, which is either a long time or a short time, depending on how you look at it.
Been working on one album for 2 years. So.
Yeah, that's the thing. They can take years and years and years, or you can do them in a day.
Yeah.
You know? There's no right or wrong.
Been doing my new bit about Eshays for about 3 days. It's been such a process.
And, just because you work longer doesn't mean, in fact, that it's going to be better. In fact, it often means it's going to be confused or diluted or a mess. Whereas when you do something spontaneously, at least it'll have some consistency and an atmosphere and whatnot. But this one, the process was probably in actuality a lot longer because I'd been attempting to make a first record for a while. I'd been working actually with Chris Ross from Wolfmother at his home studio.
Let's go.
And Miles from Wolfmother as well had contributed to it.
So everyone but Andrew,
About
basically.
everyone but Andrew, yeah. The other two OG Wolfmother guys who are long no longer in the band. In fact, weren't even in the band at the time.
Oh.
But they were the original members and a cast of people, Dan Stricker from Midnight Juggernauts, and who I've worked with a lot. Sam Vine, Ivan Vitson. There was a bunch of people in and out of this process. But it was a bit of a mess. And then Kim Moyes from the Presets, who, has been a huge part of my musical life. And at that stage certainly had been, first ever big show for Mercy Arms was opening for the Presets.
Where at? Do you remember?
The Gaelic Club in Sydney.
Ooh.
In fact, before I'd even formed Mercy Arms, before I knew the singer or the bass player, I'd drawn a picture of my hopes and dreams in life, what I wanted. I'd drawn this picture with crayons as a teenager. Crayons was a weird thing.
Oh, yeah, line around.
It is, yeah. Stick figures.
Yep.
Like really, and under a minute, what I wanted. And I drew the singer and the bass player and myself on guitar, my friend Julian on drums, and a female friend of mine who I had a huge crush on, who I drew her standing in the audience as well,
Yeah.
watching me. And I said it in the Gaelic Club. That's just where it was in my mind's eye, because I'd been to a show, the Von Bondi's show at the Gaelic Club the week earlier, and I found this picture scrunched up, folded up, sort of in a drawer years later, and realised that it came true almost a year later to the day, where that band had then been formed in that time. The bass player even had sort of curly hair like I'd given him, and the stance was sort of similar, and the singer looked sort of vaguely similar, as much as a stick figure can.
Damn. You'd manifested
the girl was now my girlfriend.
Whoa, let's go.
And we played the Gaelic Club opening for the presets.
Holy.
At that show.
Fuck, I'm going to get my crayons out.
Well, that's the crazy thing, is not that happened, but that I haven't done a drawing since.
Yeah.
You know, why am I not just doing this?
Can't roll the dice again.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
But anyway, so yeah, presets are already significant. Kim had also produced another band that I played in as a teenager called the Valentinos, simultaneously to Mercy Arms. Was in a band called the Valentinos early on.
I have a friend whose last name is Valentino.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I'll let her know.
And Kim had produced that with Chris Townend as well, engineering, who then engineered the Civic record that I just did. So there's all these through lines and sort of significant characters. And Kim from the Presets is one of them. And he came in to Chris Ross from Wolf Mother's Place and had a listen to what we're doing and heard something in it. But we then sort of packed up and moved the whole process to his home studio.
Really?
And it really just became him and I, with Dan Stricker from the Juggernauts playing drums and being involved too, and a cast of other people contributing bits and bobs. You know, my dad plays piano on Landslide, or
what a song.
There was a couple of guest vocalists and whatnot. But
you would have been 26 around this
26,
time, when Embracism came out, at least.
I think maybe 27 when it came out.
Okay, yeah.
26 when we were making it. And Kim really, he was so generous. I was sleeping on his couch half the time, or on my sister's couch. You know, I'd been living up in the Blue Mountains in a relationship that went sour, and in fact, every record I've made, this is probably the reason it's sort of years between albums for me. Then I always make them off the back of
a relationship,
of a relationship falling apart, of heartbreak or anger. And this one was certainly, I was angry at this stage.
Yeah, I was going to say, Embracism is a very passionate and raw album, front to back.
Oh, there's songs on there about me, murdering my ex-girlfriend. Quite literally, there's a song called Scraps, where the lyric at the end is, you broke me, so I broke you back, and now you're compacted with the scraps of my Nissan that I'm missing.
A lot of car, Chardonnay Sean.
Always, a lot of car stuff comes up for me, even to most recently Young Drunk Driver.
Yes. Were you in a car accident or something like that, or is it just imagery?
I think it's just an imagery that stuck with me. But I liked the idea of this scrap song, the idea that I was missing my old car more than I was missing her. And that was sort of spiteful and a bit cruel.
That's good.
But yeah, so I was with Kim, and he very generously, and this was the first record outside of the presets that he had produced as well. And he's since gone on to do a bunch of stuff, including Jack Ladder and DMAs and lots of things. But and he's one of the most amazing, like musically singular, genuinely, and inspired and passionate. To the point where, if I show up late to the studio, which I always would, admittedly, but one day he cracked it, and I wasn't even that late this one time. But he's
just the straw.
It was the straw. He was like, "Are you taking the fucking piss?" We sat there for an hour, him not saying anything, fuming, and then he's like, "We got to go for a walk to sort this out."
Really?
That whole day was down the drain. It was just tense, and that speaks volumes to his passion and how much everything really mattered to him. And with the song Embracism, he had whipped up that instrumental.
Yes.
Very much so. The whoa, 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 whoa kind of bass thing was something he'd done on his Yamaha FM synth. And then we had those synth chords, and then my kind of wild guitar.
Over the course of that.
Exactly, sort of wanted to sound like a, an orchestra, basically.
And it's crazy that, like I said, I mentioned this earlier, the way you make your guitar sound it sounds like a siren, it sounds like a really crazy distorted violin at times. It sounds like everything except for a guitar.
Well, I appreciate you saying earlier before that the album there was lots of guitars because at the time when it came out, people seemed to think the whole thing was a synth record. And whilst there are synths there, it was like, no, that's a lot of that on every song. There was guitars doing a lot of the heavy lifting.
Like the closing track, Love Delay.
Yep.
The way the guitar tone on that, firstly, is so delicious. But the way you go from these real chugging, thick chords into those sort of the dun, dun, wee. Like, I don't understand how that's the same instrument.
Just a lot of
you just got to let him cook.
Stepping on pedals. And,
you got to let him cook.
Trial and error. But,
there you go.
But yeah, the song itself, like the nearly all, I'd say, if not all, of the best or at least most honest songs I've written, the lyric was standalone. Now, in the case of Embracism, we actually already had the instrumental, but I wrote the lyric on a plane, not listening to the instrumental, just got into a stream of consciousness.
Yes.
The story flowed. I was transported to being in high school and seeing my first fight there, getting into fights myself. Not much, but they did happen. And that feeling and there was no, like, you know, people, even yourself now, and people especially at the time, it was trendy at the time to talk about it in the context of a commentary on masculinity. And it was inadvertently, I guess it was that, because I'm male.
Yeah.
So everything I said from my formative experience, but there was no intention or political or even moral bend at all. It was just some storytelling.
Wow.
And that's probably why it resonated. There was no agenda.
Yeah.
In fact, if anything, you know, as a cross-dressing, makeup-wearing, flamboyant young man since I was a teenager, it was more a reaction to having I was now interested in actually my own masculinity for the first time at 26.
Yep.
Starting to eat red meat for the first time. I was feeling some testosterone flow through me
and it just
for the
channeled.
first time. And I, you know, was sort of like, well, what if I stop wearing, you know, mini skirts and mascara for a little bit and channel my anger, having come out of this relationship, and channel my, this stories of when I was a teenager as a, you know, boy, and when I had these early experiences, and so
I just think the thing that really stands out to me, if you were to detract that masculinity aspect, is the application of the word embrace, which I think people just apply a positive. When you think of the word embrace, you think of it like a hug or something intimate you do with a partner, but the way and the context you use it in the song is almost chilling with the music. You know what I mean? I just remember
the song is a love song. It, you know, and that's, I think, the main refrain at the end of the song is you have to love one another.
Yes,
you've got to love one another. Embrace.
Yeah.
Or I don't even know if I say embrace at the end, but you're right. You can embrace war.
Yeah. It's not exactly a positive song. It's a positive word. It's just a word. You know?
Totally.
My other song I wanted to ask about, you mentioned it, Landslide, which I think is, can't stop glazing him, one of the greatest recordings in Australian music.
That's nice.
Everything about it, production, composition, the vocal take, again, floored me, and easily, probably, in my opinion, the best song titled Landslide that I've heard.
What else? There's Fleetwood Mac.
There's the Smashing Pumpkins cover of the Fleetwood Mac song.
Okay. I feel like there is
Your
more.
song.
I think there is more. And there might even be Beyonce.
Yeah, Beyonce has one.
I don't know. Is there?
I think so.
Well, I know she has a song called Halo, and I might just be getting my wires crossed. Yeah, look it up. Let's find out. Songs titled Landslide. I'm sure there's heaps.
We'll write one, Blakey. We'll do a Landslide.
Please.
It's a good word to evoke, you know, some tragedy or change or loss.
Straight away, provide some imagery in your head.
Yeah.
Smashing Pumpkins, Fleetwood Mac.
Yep, same song.
Do they even list me? Is this?
Hey, what do you want, Spotify or Google?
Spotify.
Oh, okay. I'm wondering if you ask AI, does it just ignore me?
Oh, yeah.
Hey, Siri, how many songs named Landslide are there and who are they by? No, it's all Fleetwood Mac straight away.
I mean, that's fair enough.
Yeah, they're pretty big.
Yeah,
Fleetwood
pretty
Mac
big.
are pretty big. But I want to know, what was it like? Because I remember I saw you a couple of years ago and you told a story live about that song before you played it.
Okay.
What was it like recording? I think the story you told was about how you went through all these iterations of recording it and trying to get it right.
I don't remember the show or the story in question necessarily, but that was my first thought. I had tried to record this song a number of times.
Yeah. And so the version we hear on the album, what did it take to get that?
It was Kim again. Kim being disciplined. You know, I think I'd always tried to record it live. I tried to record it like I'd play it live, where there was no tempo. In fact, I would draw chords out and wait that extra moment before delivering the vocal, and there was some drama and theatre and a feeling that evoked. But it was Kim that's like, no, let's and just set that, and it forced us to make every decision melodically, chordally, lyrically, very specific. I couldn't just sort of get away with my own theatricality to mask the laziness or in the writing. And so, we had to hone that song in. And, you know, I was probably, the departure point for that was probably the Triffids, Wide Open Road. It's, for the most part, the same chords. But it was also, you know, just chordally, not melodically or the subject matter. The subject matter was, when I was living up in the Blue Mountains, I was coaching a under-15s boys soccer team, and I was only 25 at the time.
You got to stay busy, hey?
Yeah, well, I wasn't really making much music and living up in the Blue Mountains, and I went to the local club, the Hazelbrook Hawks, and put my hand up and said, you know, I used to play, you know, soccer at a fairly high level, and I did my coaching badges and all this stuff. And I'd be up for, you know, coaching a team, volunteering. And I lived down the road. And they gave me the sort of problematic under-15s boys team that every dad had tried to go at coaching and, you know, been sort of abused or offended.
There's probably 10 movies from the 90s that are the exact plot
it
of
was
this.
Kids from the wrong side of the tracks. You know,
how do I reach these kids?
Weird mix of sort of like in the Blue Mountains, I guess, you know, low socioeconomic or sort of new age, you know, Sydney exiles, you know, hippie families or just an interesting mix, you know. And they didn't always see eye to eye. And anyway, they got to sort of 25-year-old, you know, hotshot coach or young gun kind of, you know, fresh ideas coach coming in, flamboyantly dressed. Everyone at first, including the parents, like, who is this kind of freak who's coaching our kids? You know, stranger who's got no son in the team. What's he doing here? This is sketchy as hell.
Yeah, doing it for the love of the game.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And I remember it was the first training that I got them on side, you know, making them spin around, count to 10, count down from 10, one of them spinning, and then now have to kick the ball into the net, and that'll be falling over. And this was very funny to them, and me too, and the parents, I think. And anyway, we would have these sort of philosophical discussions from time to time, you know, do some laps, kick a ball, and then sit around and throw some ideas around. And one of the ideas that came up was that hydration, water, was the essence of life, and we needed to keep hydrated, come over, get water, playing in the heat. I don't know, in the football context, that God is in the water.
Oh, I was going to say, it's the lyric.
Yeah.
God is in the water.
So that's where it came from, was, you know, from a 15-year-old boy that threw this idea out there.
Was it like, you know what I mean, like in the biopic, not the biography this time, the biopic, it's going to be like one of the kids goes, you could say God is in the water, and the other kid goes, hell is right here on earth.
And it's like the cuts back to you, just like, say that again.
Yeah, totally.
Exactly. Well, you know, my experience was with the team was also very profound. You know, we ended up taking them all the way to the final and winning, and it was a Mighty Duck story. There's great photos of us, you know, celebrating together, and them sort of lifting me up, and the champagne. And I'm sure there wasn't champagne. It was 15-year-old boys.
That was BYO.
But I actually ran into one of the kids recently
really?
who
Yeah.
came up and introduced himself like, you won't remember me. And of course I do. It was such a profound thing. And it was heartbreaking when my relationship fell apart and I moved down to the Blue Mountains and I couldn't coach these kids for a second season.
True.
But that was
Incredible.
and again, wrote the lyrics in isolation from the music.
Yep.
Which I just think is, for me, the only way to do it, and moving forward have to do it, because the alternative, which I've done a lot, I've done a lot more of making a song, making an instrumental rather, and then now trying to reverse engineer the song and fit something in, which is the Paul McCartney method.
Yeah. That's funny you say that. That's the blank. I can't do it any other way.
Well, I just find it always then
That's
the
so
song
interesting.
is the last piece. It's secondary at least.
Yeah.
You're reverse engineering what the core of the song is to fit something. Whereas if you just write it out, you can hear the music in your head, and it doesn't need to sound like that when you ultimately make it. In fact, probably better it doesn't, because now something interesting will happen with soundtrack it in a cut across that musically, but as opposed to doing the thing that.
That's really interesting. I think I'm so insecure with lyrics. It's the last thing I think of.
Yeah.
And so I write. It's like I'm thinking like, I could make a soundtrack or a song or some chords, and then I go, oh, this is giving me this vibe, and then I word vomit out a bunch of words until I like some ones that I pass for me.
Completely valid, and that's probably how I've written most of my songs. But the good ones,
Yeah, it's come from a concept.
it's
and
come from a seed of an idea. It could just still be a word or a line or an image, and then just writing and staying true to that initial spark the best you can, and then letting the music be almost in opposition to that, as opposed to what you would think you should put to it.
Yep. Interesting.
Or just applying those words to then, we've got this, which is like Embracism. I've got this instrumental piece. Oh, does that work? Oh my God, it works. That's kind of interesting. Applying it to the jam or the thing that you did. Yeah.
Interesting. We took a sandwich break, so sorry guys. Usually we go for an hour, and we're up to hour 9. So
It's great.
this is a longer episode of the pod. The people love a long episode though, so I'm happy to keep.
Have we been rolling for over an hour?
Yeah, we've already done an hour and 10.
Kidding.
It's flown by, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Nothing but great
I feel
to-
like I haven't even really got going.
Well, dude, we're only halfway through. No, we're not even halfway through. We just finished Embracism. We've got 3 of your solo albums left to go.
Look, I'm flattered, and like I said before, very willing to indulge myself in talking about myself and my work. Because I'm really, it's a few and far between, and it's not great, sort of bar chat or late night chat anyway to sit around and talk about your own stuff. So in this context, it's sort of excused.
No, it's good to commodify, and you're doing it because we're asking you to. So it's not like you're just rambling.
Yeah.
But let's jump in. Let's jump ahead. And we're going to keep dining on our sandwiches. Actually, let's do a sandwich. Let's do a sandwich inventory. What do you go for, Kirin?
Oh, me?
Yeah.
Wallaby. A wallaby Reuben.
The Wallaby Reuben.
Never had wallaby before.
And what's the review?
It's very tough and chewy. They're sort of, for those maybe international listeners, I'm sure you have many.
It's like a small roux.
Small kangaroo, a small, scrawny rock kangaroo. So it's the equivalent of goat.
Yeah.
To instead of lamb or mutton.
I went for from the same place, a grilled mushroom, and I got to admit, it's delicious.
Also delicious.
Well, there you go.
Just texturally, the wallaby is chewy.
I sampled that very same sandwich.
Muscular, I feel like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When we moved into this office about a year ago, I tested that sandwich, and the wallaby meat was not for me. And Blakey, what have you gone for?
I went for entree. I went just a normal steak pie, and then I've bought a crispy pork bar me to go for mains.
Now, some people...
Is that a Diet Coke or Vanilla Coke?
Vanilla Coke.
Wow.
Delicious.
Yeah.
Most people might think that's a lot of food for a host to consume on air, but those have probably noticed and know from listening to the pod, Blakey's speech, limited, but it's all quality over quantity.
But this usually on every episode of the pod, it's because when Luke's on the pod, I'm completely disinterested in the conversation at hand. This has been almost a complete role reversal, and I'm just happy to listen.
I'm hooked. Yeah, so true.
Also, I'm just trying to find my because I have absolutely no musical knowledge, nor talent, nor skill.
Yeah, but that's fine.
I was in the year 2 school choir, and that was about it.
What did you sing? Do you remember? Ave Maria, anything like that?
Something, it was probably.
Can you give us a sample?
Yeah.
Go.
Of Ave Maria.
No, it's not just a choir-based song. What your role
I
was?
think Ave Maria is a nice choice.
That's a nice choice. If you remember it, do you know it?
Well, isn't it in a different language?
Yeah, but you can.
Ave Maria.
Stunning. See, I
so.
believe you. You didn't make that up.
But,
You were in the choir.
I was going to ask for some tips because I've never performed anything musical in my life until now.
Yeah.
True.
Because on April 12th, I do have to do my first ever musical performance.
That's actually so true.
Opening for Tyler's show at the Cactus Room.
April 12th.
Saturday, April 12th. Blank
April
face.
12th it gives. Sorry to interrupt.
No.
It gave me like it gave me sort of October 7.
Like a
or Jan 6. You know,
like it's
April,
a day people
April
remember.
12th.
September 11th.
Yeah, September 11th.
Shit
big
went
one.
down that day.
Yeah, April 12th.
Could not have said it better myself. Because shit will be going down. Yeah. Blakey is sandwiched between.
By the way, is it October 7 or October 8 that I'm referencing?
I think it's October 7.
I think it's
It is
October
7.
7th. Yeah.
October 7, Jan 6, September 11.
Yeah. April 12th.
April 12th.
Yeah. All the same genre of event. Blakey is sandwiched between, it goes a punk band, a rapper, Blake Pavey, yours true, with the band.
Nice.
So Blakey will have to adapt, think on his feet, and you're going to have to pull out some sort of musical performance. You have access to my guitar.
Right.
And my band if you want them.
Unreal. Yep.
So have you got any ideas yet of what you want to do?
No, I've kind of just gone in the same way I do comedy. I'm just like, give it a go when I get up there. I'll start thinking about it then.
Improv king, as we know. Awesome. What tips do you have for him, Kirin, to remember on stage to maintain this live musical aura?
Good question. And finally something that anyone can take something from.
Yep.
You know? Rather than this sort of niche, indulgent ramblings.
No, stop it.
But to remember that it's all just a bit of fun, you know? And just remember what it's like to be in audience and what you like to see. You know,
So
and you'd
true.
like to see someone embrace the eccentricities, be larger than life,
Confidence.
be bold and
Yeah.
confident.
And sure of themselves.
And because too often on stage, even myself as a seasoned veteran, you can lean into being, I speak for myself, introverted and subtle and self-aware and try to downplay things. And there's
like
a place for that.
hyper-aware maybe of what you're doing.
And not wanting to, as absurd as this is, steal the limelight too much or be.
Yes.
And actually,
Because that is probably what I will do, because I feel like that's all comedians do, is try to, be a little bit subtle and self-deprecating. But I'm like,
okay. Just be.
I have to get
be
some
big.
aura.
Yeah. Be
Well, listen.
big, be bold, be Prince, be Michael Jackson, be Elvis
Be Bob
Presley.
Dylan.
Be blankface, man.
No, maybe don't be Bob.
Oh, no.
Don't say that. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, we'll see. Yeah.
He's more the turn you back to the audience kind of.
Yeah, he did do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
That's true, yeah.
If we could jump ahead now to Embracism, fantastic album. Your follow-up, 2017, Bravado. This is where I jumped in, and I jumped in because a good friend of mine, everyone's got that friend that's like,
Bravado was also my first introduction when Tyler introduced me to you. It was
yeah.
the first track I listened to.
yes. I said, listen to this song. The album itself, my friend Mitch, everyone's got that friend that puts them onto tunes. That's light years ahead of the group as far as like music is concerned. And he said, dude, you need to listen to this guy. His name's Kirin J Callinan. He's just released an album. And I said, what's the vibe? And he goes, the album cover is him pissing on his own face. And I said, say no more. And it's been on repeat ever since.
Wow.
And I would love to hear about the album art, but for me, or how I think of this album, it's like it's almost the elements of pop music and dance music blown up to such a hyperbolic level, it almost feels like satire, but it's almost like you're pulling people into something with much more substance.
There was a lot of heart in this record. Not as much as I would like. I'd always like more. And definitely there was also tongue-in-cheek at times or self-defense positions. And there was also a tendency to, or even not even a tendency, a stated intention to lean into the worst, in terms of my taste or something, the worst lyrics, the worst sounds, the worst choices. If I had a reaction to something I'd written, like a song, like a lyric or a sound that we pulled up, that was like, whoa. It's like, well, I have to do that. In fact, and that was the artwork. When the idea of piecing on myself was it wasn't my idea. It was presented to me by my friend Danny Cohen, who was very central to the visual aesthetic of the record and the video clips. We did Big Enough video. We did a Song About Drugs video together. Did the artwork, the photography. When he presented that idea, I was like, I hate it.
Yeah.
I hate that idea. I need to do it.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's as opposed to, oh, that's a cool idea. I like that. Or that's,
it was like,
I hate that idea. It flies in the face of what I actually like, which is, again, nuance or subtlety or vulnerability. And, that said, this is certainly vulnerable, but that was big. Sort of stated intention with every step of the way was leaning into. It felt like the only punk thing I could do.
Yeah,
the least punk thing I could do was try to recreate Embracism and build upon some momentum or career that I had.
Yep.
As smart as that might have been, it just felt so cheap, lazy, artless, calculated. Similarly as the least punk thing I could have done was make a punk sounding record. There's nothing punk about that. It certainly wasn't, it annoyed me, this idea of playing dress ups, or pantomime, with, this sort of has-been idea.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing that drew me into the album, especially as my entry point into the music you'd made. I'd never heard Embracism, and I found Bravado, hit play on track 1, My Moment, and it's this ridiculous dance song. It leads into these crazy, huge, like jabbing synth sounds. There's a drop with it feels like a rave.
Yeah, full EDM rave.
Full EDM rave song. And it's the most braggadocious, ridiculous. You got the pitched voices. China, make some noise.
It's actually Make Some Boys.
Is it really? Oh, it sounds like noise.
It sounds like noise, of course, and your brain would be programmed to think it's that. But
some
it's
boys.
China, Make Some Boys, because there was the boy policy or whatever.
So
I don't know if they called it the boy policy, but
well, that's I never really understood the whole China thing, to be honest with you. But I just thought this is so ridiculous. It's amazing.
The China thing was both. China was, sort of is a contemporary subject. So is that.
Yeah.
But then also the double entendre of the most fragile and delicate material to, make crockery or, fine china.
That's so true.
Was,
That's
and
awesome.
like love could be broken and you can't put it back together again.
Yep.
There was some poetic notion with China. And then also as a world superpower, both the most delicate material and also the most powerful.
And the strongest.
Force. Yeah.
There you go.
So there was something a bit like steel wool.
Yeah.
Steel wool.
True.
Yeah,
Steel wool.
sort of interesting idea of soft and hard.
Very hard at the same time.
Yeah.
What a track. I was
going to say,
please.
In regards to the synths though, it wasn't ironic. People, I think, took a lot of the sounds to be an ironic statement. It wasn't really. It was like, how do I lean into the ugliest things and try to find some beauty in the ugliness? So it was still earnest in that regard. And then also I genuinely was listening to a lot of Swedish House Mafia, David Guetta, Avicii, we would pull up Swedish House Mafia in particular because they sound the best sonically. We would pull up Swedish House Mafia and AB, Aaron Couples, who produced the record with me, and co-wrote a lot of the songs, and we made this record together, even though it's a Kirin record with me pissing on myself. It may as well have been Aaron pissing on himself. I sung the songs, I guess, but Aaron and I would pull up Swedish House Mafia and listen AB with what we were doing and go for how do we make ours sound better and raise the bar, and honestly I think the album isn't perfect, it's flawed, it's in the writing and whatever else. I mean, there's a real amazing attention to detail on this album.
I was going to say, I'm having to hold myself back from that statement because
I mean, I have had people gush and say it's a perfect record. I don't think it's perfect. I think there's things that I would have done differently had I done it again, but there was a great attention to detail and the bar was set super high in terms of just sonic production.
Yes.
And Aaron has since gone on to, do these wonderful, deep, ambitious and award-winning film soundtracks and sonic art pieces. He also has produced Gareth Lydiard records and a lot of other things. But
I think that album it sounds incredible. Like the production on it is so clean. You can hear every single part of the instrumentation.
Breath in between. Everything has its own space. It was also mixed exceptionally by Aaron and Damien Taylor, who also mixed some of the songs. I think Damien mixed a song about drugs and Bravado. I think Aaron did My Moment and most of the others. Damien might have done Down to Hang, but Damien had also worked with Bjork a lot and even being in her band, touring band, but then was her producer and mix engineer and The Killers and big high-end
really
things.
glossy
glossy stuff. And so the record really does have this immaculate sheen.
It does, but it's so funny. It's what it achieves for me, Bravado, and why I got so on board the KJC train after that album was because it somehow achieves this glossiness and this braggadocious thing, but underneath is this real authentic, what feels like relatable, I don't know, music. It's hard to describe, but even like Living Each Day, right? Living Each Day is this real upbeat sort of glossy again, the little synth tones that come in.
Co-written with Alex Cameron, actually.
Oh, really? There you go.
Although Conan Moccasin does the backing vocals.
Interesting. Yeah. There you go. And you and Alex, again, also collaborated on Big Enough and a bunch of other stuff. But we'll get to Big Enough in a second. But Living Each Day is this real upbeat, excited. There's lots of synth tones and all this stuff. But then the lyrics are about trying to make the most of each day, being happy. And there's that refrain in the chorus of shrug off the urge to systematically kill.
Yep.
And then there's a whole part where you're just talking about how this character has made just this perfect sandwich and he just loves the sandwich and he's enjoying every little moment in his day coming back to shrugging off the urge to systematically kill.
Yeah, I think that lyric actually is that's right. No, okay. There's a story in this actually. It's the second verse and the final lyric on the song is he asked his sweetheart out to dance, live each day, then hugged and kissed her when he got the chance. He had a sandwich, truly loved that sandwich. So it was sort of this like quite innocent. He asked his sweetheart to dance because he's living each day. Like it's like he's going to take the risk. And then he hugged and kissed her the moment he got the chance. And then he had a sandwich and he cherished his sandwich. So that's all very innocent, but I liked it because it was also felt very perverse in some weird way too. And the original lyric there, which we changed at the 11th hour because my partner at the time, my girlfriend at the time had said, you have no right to sing that lyric. And I took it to heart. I don't know if that's true. I don't know if anyone needs a right to say any lyric. I think you're fucking telling stories.
Yeah.
But at the time I was like, okay, maybe the original lyric was, I'll leave this up to your listeners. The original lyric was, he asked his sweetheart out to dance, then raped and killed her when he got the chance. And then he had a sandwich. He truly loved that sandwich. So it was.
But then
It was also just him living each day like his last, following his most sort of wildest instincts, and without fear of consequence.
But that's what I mean. The atmosphere of the song is all about this individual is doing whatever it is that they think is living each day to the best.
Like it's their last. Like they're going to be executed that evening.
Yeah.
So
and that's the thing. That's kind of the sentiment, at least the sentiment I take away from that album, with the lyrics and the sounds and what feels like the inspirations of the music going through it, is all about bravado, that braggadocious feeling of just trying to be bigger than yourself.
You've used 3 times now of braggadocious. I actually used braggadocio in a sentence the other day, which is just Italian for braggadocious, I suppose.
I cannot imagine the context where that naturally slid in. But let's talk about Big Enough. Big Enough is something that kind of became bigger than, it kind of became its own thing.
Continues to do so. You guys are not privy to this. I'd be very surprised if you are. But just in the last few days, I just signed a contract.
Yep.
And it's already out in Japan. Big Enough is now the soundtrack to Nissan Cup Noodle advertisements in Japan.
What? That's so sick. That happened. So they just hit you up and they just go, hey.
Yeah. And not only do they take the song, which they use in the ad and all the advertising for Nissan Cup Noodle, by the way, is like the Uncle Toby's or Vegemite of. There's a museum in Japan. They invented cup noodle. They invented cup ramen, instant ramen, instant noodle. It's that white container with the red and yellow Nissin, not like the car.
Nissin.
Nissin Cup Noodle. They're an institution in Japan.
Yeah.
And the angle for the advertisement is it's the song, there's the whistle, and then it goes to what on my recording is Jimmy Barnes screaming. They've replaced Jimmy's scream with a Japanese man yelling "fork," and then it comes up over the top saying, apparently in Japanese, "Do you eat Nissin Cup Noodle with fork? Nissin Cup Noodle tastes 30% better with fork."
As he's screaming fork.
As he's screaming fork.
Oh my God.
In the sky. They've also taken the sort of IP, the intellectual property of the video clip, and they've recreated the video where it's now I think it's mildly racist, like it's meant to look like an American man screaming fork. And I think, again, I'm not sure, the joke might be that it sounds like he's saying fuck.
Maybe. Yeah.
That's the least funny part about it. But maybe to the Japanese that really tickles.
Like, this
I don't know.
Crazy. That is really funny.
That's incredible.
That is incredible. So this song.
Also, this is the thing. I'm now, and Alex, and Jimmy, I suppose, in a way, mostly. We are now sort of, Western imperialists pushing the fork.
Yes.
If you go next time you go to Japan and you notice all these people using forks to eat noodles. I did that.
I've never been interested in visiting Japan until about 25 seconds ago.
Never had the slightest passing interest in Japan whatsoever.
But I can't wait to go around pointing at the forks and then recommending this episode of the podcast to you. That is awesome. Well, Big Enough by itself, the track, again, it's a very EDM influence, very dance track, and it's building throughout the song. It features you and Alex Cameron on the verses, and Alex Cameron is an incredible artist in his own right.
Truly.
Amazing live performer, and his albums are fantastic
Great
as well. Great songwriter. And you and him kind of alternate on the verses, and in the music video, you're kind of out in these big atmospheric landscapes, you're cowboys on horses, and then it cuts to the choruses when these bass drops come in to Jimmy Barnes, iconic Australian musician, screaming.
The most iconic Australian musician, with John Farnham, Olivia Newton-John,
Absolutely.
Kylie Minogue. Jimmy, I think, has had more number one records in this country than anyone ever, and is number one and number two, I believe, on the best-selling author list as well.
Wow. There you go.
My dad does have his book.
Yep.
There you go.
And
Whose
Paulie,
dad does not.
Exactly. Every dad has that book. That's so true. I want to know, what is the pitch to Jimmy like?
Yep.
And how does that get from idea to the studio to on the shelves to him even doing the video?
Look, there are so many stories and quite funny anecdotes here, and I'd love to cover them all, and maybe I'll try. We're not in any great rush. I've got a bit of postering to do. I guess we can get into it, but there's a lot to cover here, actually.
Yep.
From the video clip and the making of that to the writing of the song itself, the genesis of that. You know, the song came about because Alex emailed me. What became the first verse was an email from Alex, written in a poetic sort of
just by itself
form, and I replied him saying, you know, basically, you know, I've been to lonely cities, I've crossed deserts on camelback. You know, there was an original lyric here was a bit dicier as well, which I don't even know I can say, which is rare for me.
For Alex's sake.
I didn't write it. That's why I'm being. You know what? That's a good character. That's a good character trait. If it was me, I would just share it and come what may. But Alex wrote this lyric. He emailed me. It was very distasteful, off-color lyric, and we didn't go with it. And we'll maybe get to it. We'll see. But he basically wrote me that what was the first verse, and I responded him. He said, you know, signing off with, you know, this town might just be big enough for the both of us. It was an extension of the olive branch. And I wrote back saying, hey, look, buddy, you know, I reckon what you're saying, but this dog's run every course. I roamed without my boots on. I roamed without my horse, I guess. And then I ate my horse's meat straight from my horse's bones. Yep. This dog must roam alone. Yeah. And so I sort of told him to fuck off. No, this is my town, basically. And then that's what became the song.
That is verse 1 and 2 of the song.
It's awesome. Yeah.
That is awesome.
But in direct response to your question, Jimmy, how the Jimmy pitch.
Yes.
So we'd finished the song, more or less, or just more. I think we might have just completely finished it. You know, that happened very quickly. Then Al came to London. We put down our email thread. The song, we DJ'd the song that night.
Wow.
You know, Aaron whipped up the EDM. He was taking an interest in this EDM production, you know, and that's what the big central tenet of the album was. There's a number of songs like that. And so we put it to this, you know, EDM progression, and Al and I went out and DJ'd it, you know, in a bar at London Fields, somewhere there, in that market there. I don't know if you know London. And that happened very quickly. Later on, I realised it needed a sort of final gesture or closing verse, and that's where I wrote just a list of countries, basically a list of countries, where the song sort of becomes about world peace, no longer just about these two cowboys reckoning with each other and their egos and their claim for territory, but actually if we can get together and make this work, then so can the world. So, you know, I'd list a bunch of countries and conflicts, and finishing with Christianity, Islam, Judaism.
This town, this world.
Yeah, that's right.
That's awesome.
And so, it's sort of a call to world peace, which, actually, I'm not going to say this.
Instant retraction.
No, well, not because it's dicey. It's just personal information that I don't need to share.
Oh, okay, that's definitely fair enough.
Yeah. But that then sat latent for a while, and it always had the chorus at this stage was just the bum 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 synth thing with no vocals on it. I had my girlfriend at the time, Molly's the world's #1 musical whistler. She'd
really? Is that her whistling on the track?
And she whistled this sort of lead into the chorus.
Wow.
And then it was just this instrumental EDM thing.
Holy.
And I always felt like the chorus needed something, but any vocal I'd tried over it felt forced and antithetical and in conflict with the synth thing. It needed something simpler, not so heady or melodic or lyrical or gravelly as my voice was often and or is. And I'd seen this KLF music video where they'd had some sort of old has-been rock and roller, and I'm not applying that to Jimmy, but in the KLF one, had this sort of character come in and just going, wow, you know?
Yeah.
And it was quite funny and interesting to me. And I just met in London at around that same time, I just met Bryan Adams.
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
We're all that I want
Yeah.
when you're lying here in my arms. It's hard to believe we're in heaven. Or, you know, summer of
We're
six-
in London.
We're
Yeah.
in London. I don't know the lyrics, but great song though, regardless. And you know, summer of '69s.
Yep, classic.
You can forget. But
It's one of my favorite years, 69.
summer of '69. Oh yeah, incredible stuff.
Got my
I
first
just
round.
met him.
Yep.
I'd been around to his house, and him and I got on quite well. And he was showing me his magazines, and in the middle of the day, you know, he lives in
That's how me and
Chelsea.
Tola first met as
That's
well.
so
Actually,
true.
yeah.
I was like, ooh, 19-year-old comedian boy, come around. That's my magazine collection.
Pretty much. And so I wrote to him on Facebook. His name on Facebook is just Bryan Adams.
That's so funny.
There's so many. He just sort of is needle in hay, staying, just hiding in plain sight. But so I wrote to him and asked him, Bryan, I've got this song. I'd love nothing more than for you just to belt
wow.
something out over the chorus here. And he respectfully declined. Said, thanks, Kirin, but no thanks. You know, it's not really my
Dude, big time
wheelhouse.
by Bryan.
Yeah, so you know, he missed opportunity.
Oh, yeah.
On Bryan's part, frankly. And so then by the way, Jimmy recounts his version of events.
Has he
of
got
how
different-
he became involved, and it's completely different
it
to my
really?
story.
That's good. We've got him on next week.
Yeah,
so
Jimmy's coming on. Yeah.
In his, I think his book's Working Class Man.
Yes.
And
He talks about it in the
there's a whole
book?
chapter called Big Enough.
Really?
Yeah, chapter 18. I
Wow.
that's awesome.
But this is my version of events. Is my point. You know, take it or leave it. I thought of Jimmy naturally, embarrassed that he wasn't my first choice. Frankly,
Wow.
way better than Bryan Adams. Honestly,
Agreed.
for so many reasons: cultural reference, just the timbre of his voice.
I was going to say, I almost feel like his voice, it couldn't be anyone else's wail.
100%. You know, there was divine intervention there. Whatever reason stopped Bryan from doing it.
Yeah.
And so I wrote to Jimmy a very earnest, verbose, long-winded email of how much of a fan I am of Chisel, of his solo stuff, across the board. But more than anything, he is the most iconic screamer in rock and roll history. He has the most iconic scream in rock and roll internationally. Akin to Michael Jackson's or Jimmy's a screamer, and there's no one better. You know? And I'm like, all I want you to do is scream on this one song. Anyway, no reply. Never got a reply.
Straight to message request.
Yeah. 6 months passed. I'm like, we're on the eve of mastering the record.
Yeah.
We're doing final mixes. The song's going to make it. It's just it's an instrumental chorus. And I land at LAX from Sydney to LA, land at LA 6 a.m., get on the Wi-Fi. There's 6 emails from Jimmy Barnes, one after the other. Not a reply to my email. 6 months has passed at this stage. 6 standalone emails, no subject, no body of text.
Right.
Just an individual MP3 attached to each one of him screaming in different registers. I can't even get there. Not right now, too early. But and I'm just dying with laughter and crying too because it's emotional.
It's like Jimmy Barnes ASMR.
Yeah,
doing his-
100%. Him just, and I can imagine, he's been sitting there for 6 months. His wife Jane is probably like, "You've got to get back to that young kid who's written to you." And he's like, yeah. He's finally just one night, I fucking just laid the screams down, sent it off, didn't even bother writing the text, and I was deeply moved. Got to my accommodations, my lodgings, cut it together in GarageBand as quickly.
Yeah.
And first thought, worst thought, just cut it together as quick as I could, sent it off to Aaron, who sort of smoothed out the edits and made it sound as believable as possible. You know, these 6 different screams in different registers. I made the melody. Aaron then, kind of polished it up, and it made it into the mix, the 11th hour.
Holy shit.
And then when it came time to, and then the record comes out, you know, Jimmy's a feature. There was a lot of features on that record. You know, Neil Finn and the Finn family are on there. You know, some legends, Sean Nicholas Savage, James Chance, but probably none bigger in the Australian world than Jimmy Barnes, at least. And it was the plebiscite for gay marriage, and they'd asked me to headline this concert in support of gay marriage, and they'd asked me if I could maybe convince Jimmy to come down and perform.
Wow.
And so I wrote to Jimmy asking would he come down and do this thing, and also would he appear in the music video that we're going to shoot, you know, that next week as well. And he was like, oh, young fella, it's one or the other. And I was like, definitely fuck off the gay marriage. We're doing the video then. Like,
That's so good.
and
Oh my God. And what a choice. I mean,
and he came down.
and let's be honest, the gays have been enjoying the video for years. So really.
And the vote won.
Yeah, they got what they wanted in the end.
It literally worked out
the show
perfectly.
itself actually got cancelled. It didn't even go ahead.
Oh, there you go. Oh,
It was the correct decision, no doubt about it, no matter what your position is. You know, we have both now
awesome.
gay marriage and the Big Enough music video featuring Jimmy Barnes.
We can have our cake and eat it too.
wow.
But yeah, so and he just came in and in the space of about 5 minutes in front of a green screen with a cowboy hat on,
He did his
delivered
wailing.
his screaming performance, and now he, you know, is sort of indirectly, inadvertently the face of Nissan Cup
I was gonna
noodles.
say, now he's selling Japanese people
Well,
forks.
it's not. He's not in it, and again,
But
lucky to have his blessing.
His legacy is, I suppose.
I mean, that song is by far the biggest song that I've ever written or co-written. And I've been on some big songs, you know, but that one had a life of its own. It's, you know,
It became
70
like
odd
a-
million YouTube views, estimated to have been viewed or streamed over 1 billion times
Yeah.
when you add together all the different platforms.
I mean, it became like a meme that was floating around Facebook and Instagram.
when
and,
what was the NFT?
NFTs,
When
yeah.
that NFT thing happened, I was being told, turn this into an NFT, you could make millions. You know, I saw memes that I'd never even heard of, or that were very flash in the pan, sell for millions of dollars in NFT form. And I never did it. And
Yeah.
I kicked myself about that. but irregardless, that song, and I'm a co-writer with Alex and with Aaron, the producer as
Yeah.
well. Split 3 ways. Yet that song has funded my life, really.
Wow, really? Incredible.
And it also is because of the video, directed by Danny Cohen, that it had that life beyond as well.
yeah. Yeah.
And continues to do so. So, yeah.
Interesting.
It's been quite amazing. And Jimmy, very graciously, you know, he's had a number of big hits, much bigger, and at a different time where there was more money going around music too, or I guess, you know, more directly anyway. Very graciously hasn't, you know, asked for royalties, or, you know, he did it all from the his own generous and self-deprecating and beautiful.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's why he's the GOAT.
Yeah, honestly.
Jimmy's the GOAT.
Yep.
Dan, that is incredible. And that song as well, even live, again, because I've seen you with the band, I've seen you just solo, and it is one of the greatest live experiences watching that song happen.
I appreciate that.
You screaming it, jumping in the crowd, everyone. It's that ending, that finale where you're listing off the different countries and religions, and everyone's united and jumping in unison. Like, again, I loved Bravado, the album, when it came out, but what truly made me a huge fan was seeing you open for Mac DeMarco. I think it was January 2018. So a couple months after Bravado came out, and at the Forum, which is one of my favorite venues, I've seen
big,
this
beautiful theatre.
Yeah, beautiful theatre. Seen hundreds of my favorite bands there and stuff. But hearing that song live and hearing your guitar live actually, and being like, how the fuck is he making that noise with that instrument? Yeah, was a fan.
Appreciate it.
Diehard fan. But so that's Bravado. It's big enough. Just quickly, I wanted to ask you about if you have any memory of when you did a TED Talk.
Yep.
Now, your TED Talk, I watched it again yesterday and I showed it to my girlfriend. It is hilarious because... do you remember where it was?
It's Sydney Opera House.
It was at the Sydney Opera House.
It's in the concert hall, 2,500 people or whatever the capacity is.
And you
there.
have a 10-minute set.
Yeah, 10-minute TED Talk, TEDx.
Yeah.
Wanted to do what is the ultimate sort of part of that talk at the end. I wanted to do that the entire time. So for those that haven't seen it, I'd imagine that's most people tuning in.
Well, you perform a song.
Yes.
First half of his slot is him performing a song.
Yeah.
And then he pulls out an acoustic guitar and you start playing the chords of Bravado.
Yep.
Eventually you're kind of not happy with the plugged in nature of the performance. So you unplug, you kind of walk to the front of the crowd and you start just singing it with them and you kind of go, this sucks, I'm not happy with this either. And everyone's kind of laughing at you, kind of wandering around. You come back to sing it to the microphone and just as you go up to sing with about 4 minutes left of your performance, you drop the guitar pick into the sound hole of the acoustic guitar and you spend the last 4 minutes trying to shake it out of the guitar
That's exactly it.
in front of the whole Sydney Opera House.
And the original idea was that would happen right at the beginning. I'd come out, maybe even, in a sort of self-important way, want to talk about, what it is to write a song or something like this. Yeah. And I'd go to play a song, drop the pick in, within the first 30 seconds of the performance and spend my entire TED Talk just doing this, So that was the idea. Proposed that to them. My manager at the time said, you probably should clear this with them. I was like, think of that. Sure, day before, tell them, and they are not into this idea. They don't like the idea. And I'm like, what isn't to like? This is genius. But so we had to compromise where I played a song first and then did this second. And so I played sort of my most obnoxious song that I was doing at the time. And then, followed by... but, that part that you rightly mentioned that I'm sort of trying to riff with the crowd.
Yes.
That was all unplanned.
Really?
That was very... Well... It wasn't a music crowd for starters. It's a TED Talk crowd.
It's so funny
I'm trying to get
because-
them just to clap along.
Yeah.
And they're all clapping out of time. It was fucking stupid. And I'm like, what is wrong with
It
you
is
people?
really funny because like the camera shot of you on stage, you've got this luscious flowing mullet.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
You're dripped out in this eccentric outfit, or it's not even that eccentric to be honest with you.
No, not particularly by my standards.
I was going to say, for your standards.
Yeah.
And then it'll cut to like a shot from behind you of the audience, and the entire audience is like old, bald men with button-up shirts and lanyards on. And they're all just kind of like smiling, like they look like robots or NPCs.
Yeah. It was bizarre. And to fair to them, they were on board right with me. I drop the pick in, they laugh, and then people start having their sort of heart in their mouth, like, is this, oh shit, this is not pretending, like, and truly, and it was awkward for me, even though it was planned. The awkwardness that you sense on stage is real. I'm up there just shaking a guitar out, trying to, and the truth is also some things didn't go to plan. So I didn't really drop the pick in. Because if I really drop the pick in, there's the likely chance that it would come out.
Actually fully.
And the myth would be, So what I did is I taped a pick to a string and taped the string inside the guitar so you could hear the rattling of a pick in there, but it was never going to come out. It was on the string taped to the inside. But I didn't think it was loud enough, so I did 2 picks on short little strings inside the body of the guitar, so you got more of a rattle.
Like a jingle.
But the problem is they got tangled, and now we had no jingle. So I'm sweating, going, "Oh shit! Is it just working? I can't hear it. It's all falling apart."
You played yourself.
Exactly. I've
They
got
both come loose and they both fall out again.
That would have been good if there had been an avalanche of picks starts and falling out,
like a clown car.
Yeah. But I had a pick in my hand that I was playing with, and it was a sleight of hand where I sort of slipped it and
really you did that so well, because I slowed down the YouTube to be like, did he actually do? Because I thought the same thing. That pick is, we've all done it, and it's coming out in the first 60 seconds if you jiggle it hard enough.
And I wanted to be there for 10 minutes, so that's the thing. I couldn't have that pick fall out. And I guess then the other funny part is after I'm doing it for however long, then sort of calling over to my brothers, who one brother comes out and starts shaking it with me, and then another comes out with a torchlight, and we're three sort of monkeys
on stage
shaking this. Have done that once, one other time I've done that performance. I got asked right before COVID, 2019 into 2020, New Year's Eve. Julian Casablancas of The Strokes.
Yep, and The Voids.
And The Voids as well, who my first ever production gig was producing some songs for them.
Yep.
But he's asked me to come MC their New Year's Eve show at the Brooklyn Bowl? Big basketball arena, whatever it was called.
Okay, yep.
In New York. 20,000 people, and so I'm the MC and sort of coming out between acts, and I did that bit as well there, which people were not happy. It's their New Year's Eve, and there's this like, who the fuck is this guy? Just standing there shaking that they've not paid to come see. It's not even announced on the bill. I'm just sort of hanging out and coming out,
just doing your thing.
Yeah,
that is awesome.
So it went down less well probably at that, and 20,000 people is a lot more than 2,000 people at the Opera House. It's people are looking at this like I'm like a ant on stage. Yeah, it was
the bit maybe not hitting as well.
It didn't hit as well. No, people were people were mad. People were trying to have a good time. New Year's Eve.
That is
They're
so
not
funny.
seated. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Now, again, I feel bad. We've been going for a long time, but there's still so much more to cover. We're going to jump from Bravado, which is 2017. Things are looking up. Everything's cruising and going well. Your next release was, I think, 2018 Return to Sender came out?
2019.
2019.
But between, I recorded it in 2018.
Yeah, okay. Between Bravado in 2017 and 2019's Return to Sender, there was an incident at the ARIAs on the red carpet in which, again, listen, as a fan at the time, I remember not truly feeling like I understood properly, because I was always of the opinion like, okay, something's happened, and it kind of felt like you'd been removed from the laneway lineup, and things were kind of going awry, and then you disappeared. Just when everything was looking like, ooh, who's this
100%.
Exciting prospect and artist? And then you disappeared. So
it fucked my career.
Did it really?
Oh, yeah.
Are you comfortable talking about it?
Absolutely.
Oh, wow, cool.
I feel like I didn't talk about it at the time enough. And since then, it's felt like something digging up something in the past, or even like this thing doesn't die. So I haven't talked about it that much outside of private conversations.
So what happened? Is it late 2017?
I'm absolutely happy to talk about it. In fact, I feel like there's things to be clarified there.
Cool.
Even where someone like yourself, Tyler, who's followed what my career, still doesn't really know what happened there. So it was ARIA's red carpet. I did have a lot of momentum. I was nominated for an ARIA for the first time. I'd been in the Australian music industry for 15 years or something at this stage. Multiple bands, multiple records, critically revered ones, or played big shows and rah-rah. First time having an ARIA nomination. First time, I'd never really been played on the radio or embraced by the mainstream music community. So, Bravado had come out on a major record label. I'd signed to EMI. I was one of the sort of more headline Australian acts on the laneway bill. I was going to the World Cup in 2018, Russia World Cup, to host the Vice's coverage of the World Cup. There was corporate sponsorship opportunities, all sorts of things happening to me for the first time, and evidently, the last time. In the immediate, this event, which I'll go into detail about, in the immediate, it cost me tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars. I'd think more than that, it would probably be upwards in the millions of dollars. Because,
holy shit.
Got kicked off Laneway Festival, with Danny, the owner of the Laneway Festival, on the phone to me, Kirin, we know you're a lovely guy, everyone loves you, but we've got to kick you off the bill. I'm crying on the other end, like I'm just feeling mortified about this whole thing. And But, next time you put a record out, we'll have you back on the bill. I've not been back on any major festival bill.
No, that's what it's funny because you get no Triple J support or mainstream
Triple J,
support.
not even really FBI or which is or Triple R's equivalent in Sydney. Not really much radio support.
What is interesting is that you're still collaborating and associated with so many big artists who all love you.
I play guitar for Genesis Owusu.
Yeah.
We go, or, Mark
who
Ronson,
is all over Triple J, Genesis Owusu.
Totally.
When that album came out, it was everywhere.
I mean, I'm invited to play Splendor in the Grass or whatever it is when I'm playing.
Did see that set? It was fucking awesome.
With him or whoever I'm with, But deemed inappropriate, I suppose, on my lonesome, which has been bizarre.
It is bizarre.
But the event itself was fairly innocuous. It was, red carpet. There's a camera. There's a photo wall. You get your photo taken there. You do some interviews. Bunch of photographers. One of which, for about 20 minutes, half an hour, was yelling out, Kirin, what's under the kilt? I'm wearing a kilt. A little tartan number, as I often did, and I still do. And it is a sort of known rhetorical question, especially of people of that generation. You don't ask a Scotsman what's under the kilt. You're going to get the answer is nothing, and you're going to get flashed. Yeah. And so, in the traditional spirit of the question, after it had been asked for me of quite a while, and I'd done interviews and photos, as I was walking away, I turned around, little flick up of the kilt.
Yep.
Flash, a few laughs, light bulbs go off, the cameras. To my knowledge, no one, and not just to my knowledge, I say that because I'm being sincere, but genuinely, no one was offended or upset, or there was literally only a handful of people that even would have seen it. A few laughs, more interviews, more photos, hanging around for a bit with some friends, go into the awards, don't win the award, have a great time.
Yeah.
After party for a bit. Anyway, wake up a bit hungover the next morning. Bunch of missed calls and texts from my dad. Like, call him, what the fuck did you do? I was like, I genuinely had no idea what he was talking about. It was such a non-event at the awards themselves, but it's now front cover of the Daily Mail or whatever. Shock horror, musician exposes himself. And that was kind of funny. It was sort of, sensationalist press beating this thing up, and it was a bit like,
Yeah, classic Daily Mail.
Yeah, and nothing to be too concerned about. But then over the coming hours and then days and weeks, it sort of twisted into a flashpoint of toxic masculinity, white male privilege. There was articles written that put my name in the same sentence as Harvey Weinstein. It was being equated to sexual misconduct or something that just had really nothing to do with it. Was no different from a nudie run at the cricket and far more brief and private and asked for. And I'd also done so many nude photo shoots where a photographer asked me to be naked. There's no second.
Man, piss on your face for the album cover.
That was the other great irony is I was nominated for Music Video of the Year for a song about drugs. That featured nudity.
Yeah, I was going to say.
And I was showing up in character.
The music video for Song About Drugs takes place in India. Is it India?
Cuba,
sorry. Cuba, you're in Cuba.
Similar colours.
And it's just cutting between different shots of you.
Yeah, including, sort of naked or one in a elephant trunks. But yeah, so, it was no big deal to me to the album cover I'm naked, the inner gatefold I'm naked. The music videos are nudity. I'd been, posting from time to time naked things on Instagram, which was far less censored back then, and always that they were the ones, as you'd imagine, where the likes and comments were through the roof. It was sort of become part of my brand identity for better or worse. Probably for worse. It was boring to me, frankly, and felt played out, but I was playing along.
Well, it was interesting to me, the discourse that kind of came out of it and the part that I personally, and again, maybe people listening to this will say that thing of like, well, you are also a white male, whatever. Sure. But the discourse that was surprising to me was you as a figure was someone who was so vocal about expression. Your body was, like you said, a part of your branding and your image.
Yep.
It was this openness and fluidity that I thought it would be insane for the discourse to.
It was definitely people that had no context of my history as a flamboyant, fluid artist. Not that really mattered, or is anyone's fucking business.
Yeah.
But it was definitely taken out of context, and also weaponized by, I think, people that already had a problem with my obnoxious online persona.
Yep.
My distasteful, ugly music that I was making. Cultural elitists that were waiting for me to fuck up in order to lay
get
the
you on
boot in.
something.
People that were contemporaries of mine that I thought my friends, and we'd played shows together, that turns out were really jealous that I'd signed a major record deal to EMI, I think, that I'd had this momentum and come from very underground experimental scene, and now was having some commercial, it's not like I was making lots of money at this stage, but
No, but I mean,
things
you're
were
at
happening.
the
I was
ARIA,
nominated for
so
an
it's-
exactly. I'd been embraced for the first time by, in part at least, by the mainstream industry at least. My biggest mistake with this whole event, though, truly, it wasn't the act itself. It wasn't doing it. In fact, that was actually pretty good. I got heaps of press over it. You know, I'm not a moralistic person when it comes to art. I believe it should be amoral, actually. In fact, any time you try to imbue some sort of moralism or politic or agenda in there, it stinks. So, tell amoral stories, be outrageous, and let the world decide it, which is what happened. But the mistake I made wasn't the event. It catapulted me from the sort of most small-time nominated artist at the awards to the headline story.
Yeah.
With no premeditation or it's not like I was, it wasn't some stunt. I know a bunch of other artists did a bunch of stunts trying to get attention at the red carpet or whatever. This was just me reacting in the moment, spontaneous and reckless as it might have been perceived. The mistake, is what I'm getting at, wasn't the doing it, it was not doing it again. And again, and
making it part of it.
Yeah, being called having my name equated to the Me Too thing or something, or it being sexual misconduct or white toxic masculinity, white male privilege, whatever it was. I was conducting a moral inventory. I was like, am I these things? I went to ground a bit, like you said, and then upon reflection, I'd never apologized for it, but I was sort of graceful, I think, and humble in my acceptance of the punishments that came, and my dropping from lineups. And I thought, this is just a chapter in my story. And
You were on the project too, I believe.
I went
from
on
memory?
the project, and they were sympathetic, but I was sort of a bit beaten, and whilst that was my honest reaction, the problem with that was that up until that point, for the most part, I think people had been attracted to my persona and my music because I represented a I don't give a fuck kind of energy. And the moment I gave a fuck,
people were like, "Ugh!"
The myth was broken, the spell was broken.
Interesting.
And that has to be paramount and number one. And I should have been probably, it was a pretty crazy time in the world. But in retrospect, I was like, I should have been more confident in the person that my friends knew me as and my family knew me as, and not believed all this
it also
nasty stuff. And you know what? Oh, I can't stop. I'm doing it again. Or one friend of mine advised me to write a book called I'm So Sorry, and a big thick book of just how apologetic I was. Or, there was lots of sort of funny ways to address it, artful ways to address it. But I just sort of froze for a bit. I think actually it could have, I didn't want it to be my story. I wanted the music to speak for itself. But actually, I think you got to play the hand you're dealt. And had I booked a bunch of big theatres off the back of this event and made a big spectacle out of it, that would have probably been far more interesting and exciting for the world. And for every one angry online voice, there would have been 100 or more people that were like, this is really funny and fun.
Yeah, it is funny how it is easy to be convinced of people in comment sections.
Oh, you hear the dissenting voices 1,000 times louder.
I always just think, like, even when we post a clip of the show or something, and someone will say, like, who's this idiot with the big head talking?
Yeah.
And you'd be like, oh, well, no, I can never talk again.
You could have 100 comments saying, I love this. This is
Yeah,
awesome.
but you see that one
comment.
and you're like, God, my night's ruined. But then I think
Yeah.
I think to myself like, oh, when I'm scrolling and I come across something I don't like, I don't comment like, I hate this. I just keep scrolling. It's indifferent
And
to
that's
me.
a really
So it takes
easy-
a type of person.
Totally.
It takes a type
A
of
malicious person.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
What I wanted to, I was going to ask something else about the, can't remember. I've lost my train of thought.
Mm-hmm.
But moving on from that event to Return to Center, your next full length.
Yep.
Now, the concept of this album was that it was a covers record.
Yep.
None of the music on it was original. Was the title track?
The title track was a sort of original.
It's like an instrumental ambient
piece, but the rest are all covers. Yeah.
Yes, and the album is called Return to Center.
Yep.
But the production and the recording of the album was you recorded in LA, where they have their music stores, Guitar Center, and I believe was it that you went and bought a bunch of gear, recorded the whole album,
Spent the entire album budget on one day in Guitar Center, and then had the length of their return policy, 2 weeks to make the album before returning to Center and getting all the money back. Thus, in theory, having made an album for free.
Yes, the album title is called Return to Center because it's kind of like you covering all these songs that have inspired you and kind of getting back. What I thought it was you getting back to your roots after this
100%.
big
It was my
career.
spiritual, emotional return to Center, especially after my career
Your
imploding.
career shut down, and you're like, well, listen, I'm coming back, but it's going to be a bunch of songs
Back
that
to the music I love.
inspired me and
Yeah.
that you love. But then also, after the album comes out, you release this YouTube documentary, goes for about half an hour roughly. It's the journey of you doing, as you said, going to Guitar Center, buying all the gear, doing the album in 2 weeks, and then returning it and getting your money back.
Yeah, that was the whole concept.
And I remember too, again, to go back to comments and stuff after the album came out, I thought that was the greatest thing I'd ever seen, was all these Reddit's comments being like, actually, these workers get paid commission, so he's actually costing people commission. And at the end of the video, you're like, firstly, you're leaving them a big tip. Secondly, why not have an issue with the fact that these people aren't paid properly for their work?
Yeah, it's not my problem.
Yeah, exactly.
Frankly.
But also, it was just like, anyway, to get aside from that.
Well, I was playing by their rules.
Yes.
Which changed, would you believe, after the making of
you
this
did
record.
it.
Yeah.
How much did you spend on gear? Do you remember?
Upwards of $10,000 US.
Yeah.
About 20,000 Australian.
And was that, what was that? Guitars, was it?
Everything. So the rules were, it was 8,888 was what we aimed to land at, and it was around there.
That's awesome.
USD. And so maybe like 15,000 Australian, but I'm not sure exactly where we landed. But the idea was everything we were going to use to make the record was bought from Guitar Center that day and would also all be returned. So guitars, yes, and we record the album with guitars with the tag still hanging off the
And there was
the
like
head.
speakers and gear with some plastic wraps on them.
drums. Yeah, we packed all the packaging carefully away. But also the cables, the mic stands, the mics, obviously, the picks. We didn't use a computer. We used a hard disk recorder thing that we bought from Guitar Center as well. Sort of a home demo thing.
And who produced? Where did you record? You recorded in like a garage or something.
Exactly. So simultaneously, it was a perfect storm. My very good friend, tragically, her father passed away, so she was heading back to Melbourne to be there for the funeral. And she'd also had a big birthday party in the house just prior and got the eviction notice after this big party. So she goes back to Melbourne. She says, Kirin, you can take my room. I needed a place. Take my room for the rest of the time of the lease before we're getting kicked out. So they had they were getting moved on anyway. They had this big garage at the house. They're only there for 2 more weeks. I've had this idea for the record. I'm like, can I make a record in your garage? And everyone's like, yeah, absolutely. So for that the day that we packed up all the gear into the boxes to take back to Guitar Center was also the day where the whole household is moving out. Like it was.
You like to be out.
Yeah. Everyone's moving out So we had the last 2 weeks of this house, beautiful house in Silver Lake, to make this record. And so, one big day, went to Guitar Center in West Hollywood, bought it all, set it up. Some of the best musicians in LA were coming through. Dave Elich from the Mars Volta.
Oh wow!
Played drum. He plays with Weezer now, but played with Miley Cyrus and Justin Bieber, top level session guy. He plays drums on a number of the songs, The Homosexual on Life is Life. And then the other drummer is Stella Mosgower, plays with Warpaint, and she's amazing as well. So Drew Erickson, plays with Roger Waters from Pink Floyd, but also Wise Blood and Father John Misty and lots of Zach Dawes on bass, like Lana Del Rey. Jasper Leak works with Quincy Jones.
And here they all are gathered in this garage
playing cheap Guitar Center sort of musicians to make. So I had 2 weeks to make an album.
Do you know what is so insane though?
I needed the best players.
Yes, of course.
We did a song a day,
Competency was key.
Yeah.
But what is the craziest thing about this album? It is a covers album, but it sounds like any artist's full-length planned record. You've picked a list of songs that flow so well together. Your spins on them are so...
I would change them in retrospect.
Really?
Yeah.
You would change the covers?
I would change a couple of the songs.
Really? Which ones?
I had a very long list of potentials.
Yeah.
However, the songs that we went for, it was really just what was I feeling that day.
Wow.
And there was at least one. There was Vienna.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
The last song on the record, that wasn't on the list. I just woke up one morning, Vienna, sort of singing it to myself. I was like, well, let's do that one.
The fellas and I were pretty keen for a Billy Joel cover at the end there.
I wish I had done more Australian songs.
Okay, yep.
I wish I had done more songs written and sung by females because sort of,
just to diversify a bit.
Just not that anything like that, just the twisting of the context,
Yeah. Well, it's funny, I love that cover of Hole of the Moon is one of my favorites. Version?
that one almost didn't make it as well.
Really?
That song was deep in the list.
Wow.
And we just started working. We started chipping away at it, and I was like, "Oh, this feels good." Yeah. And I certainly didn't think it was going to be the single that it ended up being.
Yeah.
And
that is one of my favorite. That is a reference track I use when mixing because I'm like, everything in this song sounds so incredible.
It really does sound good, especially when you consider we made this record on a hard disk recorder.
That's what I mean. In the garage,
we didn't buy the shittest, cheapest stuff. We wanted to buy stuff that would stay in tune and you could get a good tone out of. The drum kit probably cost a couple grand, maybe.
Wow. It sounds great, and the drum sound on it is
we're doing
insane.
it in a garage too.
Yeah.
But I had such great players, and that's the thing, especially with drums. It's an acoustic, physical instrument. You could have 100 different drummers play the same kit, and they'll all make it sound different.
Yeah,
I needed the best drummers I could get, and literally got the best, full stop. And they extracted such a musical voice out of the instruments.
Yep.
Benji Lasite on guitar as well, plays with Chrissy Hind and Lana Del Rey as well. And just lots of really... Frank Titaz, good friend of mine, he came in as the producer for a fraction of what he would normally be, Grammy Award-winning producer, just because when I had the idea, I called Frank.
Yeah.
Let's go to Guitar Center, buy this stuff, and then we'll get the length of the return policy and we'll take the stuff back. And
he was like, this is
so... And he's like, he loved it. So.
Yeah, this is great.
Travis Ference, who was engineering and helped set down and do overdubs and everything. Everyone just... he was doing, I think the other thing he was working on was like 21 Pilots or something.
Wow.
They were top dogs.
Right.
And
mainstream artists. And
yeah, exactly. Whether you like those artists or not, attention to detail. And,
no, I was going to say, a band like 21 Pilots, like that's my girlfriend has always been a 21 Pilots head.
Oh, wow.
And there's been a few songs along the way where I'm like, yeah, I really like this song, but I'm not like a diehard.
Yeah. I can't say I even know any, but I know that it's pop.
No, but it's pop, but the production is so amazing. It's so incredible to hear how they put the songs together and listening to it, especially on like a really nice big speaker system or in the car, for example. Yeah. You hear so many things and I just think, God, I don't know how you could sit there and get to this end product. It's part of the wizardry,
Totally, yeah. Dark arts.
The dark arts, correct. So that's Return to Sender, and that album is absolutely incredible. Let's jump now to your latest solo release, last year's If I Can Sing.
Yep.
Now, my perception of this album, it was a bit of a return to something like Embracism, where it felt like you were... It felt like the purest form of what the kind of music is that you like to make. That's what I think, at
100%.
least. It is so varied. It is so well recorded. It's so well written. There are so many songs on it that are just ridiculously catchy, but are completely unique, like Anemic Adonis, for example. Mm-hmm. It took a while to put that album together, though. Am I correct?
It did.
Because I remember seeing you, I think, in 2021, maybe, playing songs from it.
A lot of those songs existed in some form back that stage, and the album wouldn't see the light of day till 2024.
Yeah, I think I remember hearing In Absolutes at that gig.
Yeah. I mean, that one even older. In
Really?
fact, the guitar chords from that I've been playing since I was 18, 19 years old.
Wow.
And they've just floated around, never found a home. And like Embracism, and this is where the main spiritual through line is, it was a breakup record, you know?
Wow.
I'd had a lot of these songs floating around for years in various forms, and it wasn't until I had my heart ripped out of my chest that I now had the nothing better to do, frankly, and the impetus and the anger and the sorrow and the need to express something in order to do it. Like, why would anyone in their right mind, in a healthy place in their life, want to go through the humiliation of writing a song, for starters, that's self-interrogation, let alone recording it and revealing to yourself your own limitations as a singer, musician, whatever, then put it out into the world to be met with, you know, criticism or worse, indifference, you know? Why would anyone put themselves through that? You have to be in a pretty low place. And for me, I've had to be, I'm otherwise a very happy, optimistic, cheerful, quite, you know, I think fun person to be around. And so that's why I'm not making records constantly. It's not until I'm, you know,
you're at a moment of
emotionally
potential rebuilding.
destitute, suicidal, broken.
Wow.
That so I'd had those songs. Don't get me wrong, music's fun for me. So I'd made a bunch of things, written a bunch of things, but it wasn't until I was heartbroken that I was like, well, now I got to. And I was also it was also COVID time. I was stuck in New Zealand. Couldn't come back to Australia. And couldn't go overseas because of visa stuff. Couldn't come back to Australia because of border closures and then, you know, vaccine stuff. I didn't want to get vaxxed, and so I sat tight in New Zealand and had nothing better to do than to record. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
And the music videos as well. I think, is it Eternally Hateful, the one that's like the real medieval one where you're constantly dying and getting chopped up?
Yep.
Whose idea and whose direction was that?
Sorry.
No, please, sandwich away.
It's the last little bit. So
Nugget
it's
of
been
wallaby.
teasing me, so calling me. The last little bit of wallaby flesh. Should I just finish it? And then
Yeah, mate, just finish
for
it. We'll conduct some admin in the meantime.
No, that's fine. I appreciate the question too. Really good friend of mine, Isaac Brown. This was his debut music video.
Oh, wow. What? It's his debut music video?
Unbelievable.
That's an extremely cinematic and well-shot
I've
video.
made some ambitious music videos. This one was the most ambitious video I'd probably to date made. The shot list, the ideas, it was all outrageous. I was like, how the hell? I had a freak out on day zero as we were planning. Like, there's no way this is going to happen. Most of my videos have been made like Song About Drugs or The Homosexual. Really great videos, I think, but they're just me, or even The Whole of the Moon. I had an idea, and then 2 days later we're shooting, spontaneously getting up and just doing the thing, seeing what happens. This one, every shot was meticulously planned out and quite incredible, both to the minute we would like wrap shoots of scenes and move to the next thing. It was so well oiled and unbelievable, and all done on favors as well. No one was getting paid. But yeah, we went to central France and hired out a castle, you know, 1,000-year-old castle for next to nothing, just by renting all the rooms and saying, can we shoot something while we're here, while we're staying? And the little old ladies come around the corner from the, you know, keep and see me getting sort of quartered and stretched, you know, naked.
The camera's rolling.
Starts screaming in French, like, what the fuck are you guys doing? You're going to have to pay me a lot more money. I didn't agree to this. I'm trying to understand every 10th word. I'm like, I'm just getting the vibe. I'm like, my mum's there. I'm like, Mum, I think my credit card's in my backpack in the back. I think just pay this woman whatever she wants. Like, we've already started now. We're all here.
We're going to commit.
Yeah, we're committing. You know, we went up into this top turret. You know, it's got to be equivalent of 8 stories high or something, very high. Medieval turret, 1,000-year-old structure, and we're stringing me up and hanging me from the beams up there, which could have collapsed at any at midnight, and simulating sort of sawing me in half, and there's blood going everywhere. It was outrageous video.
Yeah, it's an awesome video.
Yeah, the song itself is quite fun sonically anyway, and playful. The subject matter is heavy in that it's about really hating someone who's hurt you, but presented in a kind of
but it's
pop
that
ditty.
That's what I mean. Yeah, it's that really up-tempo, pop-inspired, that guitar sound that sounds like a synth. It's all extremely catchy and hooky. It's really driving. And then the video is so brutal and hilarious.
If the video in any other context is, I think what I was getting at, would have been like a snuff film.
Yeah.
But in the context, it's a pop song.
It's a pop song.
Yeah, it's a pop song. It's like, oh, it's kind of playful.
Yeah.
I was literally, quite literally being tortured. It was painful.
Yeah.
And we tortured me in as many ways as possible. The final scene, I'm so sorry.
No, please.
Is me burnt alive at the stake. And so we've got this whole fire going. And I'm then sort of standing just behind the fire. And we've got me as close to the fire, and then the camera is close to the fire on the other way, and we're shooting through the fire, so it looks like I'm burning, But to add to the believability of it, I also took a heap of MDMA.
Yeah.
And so my eyes are just like pupils are dilating. I'm bulging out of my head.
Yeah.
I'm sweating,
You're like, guys, this is in the budget. We have to do it. It's for the video.
This is art first.
Yeah, exactly.
Art for art's sake. Drugs for art's sake.
That's awesome.
But I look psychotic.
Yeah.
I look like a heretic burning at the stake. So, yeah.
Incredible video. I want to ask, Crazier Idea, the song, it's got this really janky rhythm and beat to it. But again, it doesn't sacrifice that hook or that catchiness. Was there a song or anything in particular that inspired that?
Yeah. That's one rare, just maybe 50% of the time there's a song that's like a departure point.
Yep.
Probably less, actually. Often it's just sort of see what happens. But that one had a song. I'm hesitant to share what it is.
You don't have to share what it is.
And I'm trying to think why that is. Is it because I'm afraid of being sued? Or is it just to keep a bit of mystery? I don't know.
No, but it's just one of those things where sometimes I hear a song and I'll go, what the fuck inspired this? Like,
that's good.
What was the clue? What was the thing that tapped you in?
I can give you a clue.
Yeah.
The melody is, when the spirit comes to play, the game she plays is real. For those of us who fly. The song that I borrowed from was When Angels Come. That's it. Their melody goes somewhere else after that. But when angels come to play, the phrasing is a bit different too.
But it was just that hook. And then you kind of just took
it has a little bit of.
It's like a reimagining. It's almost like an
my
interpolation.
So you can Google this. When my lyric is when the spirit comes to play. The lyric of the Prefab Sprout song that I stole from.
He's out of himself.
I'm not going to sit here and beat around the bush. Is when the angel voices sing. I think it's similar sort of similar departure point. It goes somewhere else after that.
Yeah,
but yeah,
and that's you just heard that you had that sitting with you, and you just thought,
no, it wasn't intentional. I recognized it after, but Max had this sample. Max Baby, who produced the song, had this doom sound sample that could play in different keys and different notes. And I was like, that. And we made a really complex, abstract jazz, industrial version of that. And then we had to simplify it in order to fit a melody.
Yeah.
And I just had the melody very quickly. I wrote the lyrics in about 5 minutes' time, again, stream of consciousness. Okay, I think I've got something, get on the mic, sing it,
And then
we're
it's
both like,
done.
that's the song. It's there. It's done.
Yeah, it's what I mean. It's that thing of like when you listen to it, you're like, this is so janky, but it works so
Well,
fluidly.
originally it had a sort of drum and bass. There is a demo of it, or the first day recording. It's not really a demo. It's just the first work in progress. Feels a bit drum and bassy, garage thing going on. And then once we put real drums on there and put a real bass guitar on there instead of the keyboard bass, the whole thing changes.
Yep.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that's one of my favourite songs I've ever written as well.
It's a great track. And then the last thing on this album I want to ask you about is the music video of the title track.
Yep.
If I Could Sing,
Yep.
which features you in what looks like an empty ballet room or some old
Yeah, it's
theatre.
a big scout hall.
Yep, scout hall.
Yeah.
Camera slowly pans outwards. You're sitting naked, and your manhood, I suppose, is extremely long.
Endless even.
Endless, an endless manhood. As the camera pulls out, it just goes on forever.
Yes.
What was the inspiration for that, and how did that video concept come about? For a song that is, that is a sign of what I think is like a breakup song.
Yeah. Yep. It's definitely an earnest. Again, wrote it years earlier about a different relationship, and then once having a relationship fall apart again and being heartbroken, now could reconnect to that feeling, and that song now had some relevance again.
Yeah.
And so I was able to complete it. But the video was out of the blue. I got sent a treatment. Some stranger on Instagram sent me this thing. I was like, what is this? And it was a sort of 3D rendering of the concept of the video. And it's a 3D sort of computer version of me sitting there, and it zooms out to reveal this endless penis. And I spit out, I'm in France and I'm drinking wine, and I spit out my wine, you know. Oh, merde.
When in France, do as the French do.
I was, and not only did I find the idea hysterical, and I couldn't believe as well that no one had done this, to my knowledge. I also was like, and if I don't do this, who will? And like no one that I can think of at my level, or certainly or bigger, I don't think is going to do this idea, and that's a great shame. I now have a duty to do this. I have an artistic.
It's a burden and a blessing.
100%. I was like, I am and I'm the most appropriate person for this to be done for whatever reason. I don't know why. And so I just had to write back and I guess so, sure.
And so did this person then make the prosthetic? And
They've then commissioned, Connor Mercury is the director who came up with the idea. He commissioned this special effects artist named Dom, who Dom's wonderful. Interestingly enough to me, is trans man, born female, who now gets commissioned to make this 30-foot penis. You know, sort of they're like psychic.
Again, the manifesting.
Yeah, totally. And they're sort of great pleasure.
Dom
to make.
was like, as a teenager,
Dom
drawing
pulls out a crayon.
exactly. Had drawn exactly.
But it's like a scroll from old timey scholars. He unravels it.
Yeah.
He unravels it. It just goes straight down.
But yeah, so that's Dom was commissioned to make this 30-foot or 10-meter-ish long, very realistic.
Yeah.
I have it in a duffel bag with me, not here, but when I'm staying in Melbourne.
Oh,
I bring it with
is
me
that
everywhere.
checked or carry on?
No, the
Fragile baggage.
I got stopped at X-ray at security. Like, can we ask you exactly what's in here? I said it's a very large phallic sculpture, and they've opened it up and burst out laughing, and they were good sports about it. And, yeah.
That is amazing.
But
Wow.
yeah. But that sort of was appropriate for the closing gesture from the album. The title track.
And it's a beautiful video. Like, we might be painting
It was important to make it beautiful. That was the whole thing from the beginning. Let's do something really beautiful and genuine. You forget that this penis is even there. Much of life. The whole time we've been sitting here, I've barely even thought about the fact that you guys have penises.
Right? I've been thinking about it the entire time.
I've personally been hyper aware.
Why do you think I haven't been speaking this entire episode?
It's been mesmerised. Yeah, it's just this beautiful shot of like, I guess, part of the shaft slowly moving through the flowers.
There's always a penis in this
Yeah,
video.
and almost every frame.
At no time is there not
And
a
then
penis
this
in the
incredible shot
foreground.
of you sitting on a tree and the penis is draped over all the branches.
Yeah.
Like,
Lovely.
it's a stunning set of imagery.
Yeah, it is. It's that everything looks like a painting, and that was the idea. Also, through humour, I find that opens us up. So I thought if we can, you get the reveal of the penis within the first 30 seconds of this video. We've now got 5 minutes plus. It's a long ballad to sustain this idea, and I liked this idea that we would give the punchline right at the top, and now it would be the initial laughter, maybe some chuckles as you go, but that initial release would leave you unguarded and open to now receive the sentiment of the song and in a maybe more intimate way than you might have otherwise.
And it's very effective in that mission. All right, well, we've made it through all of your albums.
I think
Kirin.
we've covered a lot of ground.
We've covered all the ground. Just quickly, I did want to ask you before I let you head off about Smiling with No Teeth, the Genesis Owusu album.
Yep.
So it's Genesis Owusu's first album.
Yep.
2021, I believe it came out.
About that.
What was the genesis of that record?
Genesis, young Kofi by birth, talented lyricist, rapper, singer, performer. And, there'd been people that recognised his talent, none more so than Andrew Klippel, his manager, who then, I've known Andrew for years, since I was a teenager.
Yep.
Since Mercy Arms days, him and his business partner had been, hanging around, and his business partner became our manager. And anyway, so with a young Kofi from Canberra, he's endeavoured to put together sort of the most appropriate or inappropriate, flamboyant, musical, expressive band he possibly could.
Yep.
And so, I was lucky enough I get the call up to play guitar, touch sensitive, Michael DiFrancesco on bass, absolute weapon and pig of a bass player. Julian Sudak, the Mercy Arms drummer as well, on drums. Andrew himself on keys, also amazing. Later on, Jonty Danilowitz joins the band too. Real, just amazing
Players.
collective of musicians. And we make we record for 5 days straight, just making it up. Kofi largely sitting in the corner of the room, putting down a bit of vocals, but, we're not really privy to it. And a little bit of overdubs over the next however many weeks and months, but for the most part, that record was made from these initial spontaneous jams.
And that is, it's just insane to me about that is like songs like Don't Need You, which was an incredible song, incredible chorus and single. Again, you can hear your guitar. It's just like, that's
a funny one. That actually, Andrew and I went for dinner after we'd been working on the record, and Andrew said, there's this one jam, and he plays me the sort of, just the phone recording of Don't Need You that we did, that Kofi's not sure about it apparently. I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, Kofi, but my understanding was, wasn't sure, and I'm like, I will take that if he doesn't do it. There's a dun, 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 dun. Dun, 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 dun. Yeah.
Dun, dun. And that's got a bit of jank to the chorus as well. It kind of makes it sound out.
But sure enough, Kofi does, and I think that was probably the one of, if not the biggest song off that album. When the album won the ARIA. I remember saying during the recording process that we're going to win a Grammy for this record, and I think I drew one actually.
Yeah.
Oh, you drew one with that.
And put it up in the studio. And we didn't win a Grammy, but we won.
Oh, did you draw it in crayon or was it texture?
I fucked up somewhere, but we won a lot of ARIAs for that. It was album of the year, single of the year, best new artist.
He's killing it in the US too.
Yep.
I mean, the Grammy's probably not far off for him.
Yeah, could do. The second album, which I was far less involved in, I only play on a few songs, I think, but toured it with him.
Yeah,
that also won the ARIA for best album, and quite incredible, really.
He is an incredible artist.
2 out of 3 years won, best album. Which look, I have my own history with the ARIAs, and I don't believe that it's necessarily
a measure of
artistic success. I've been involved in a lot of great things, and or heard or witnessed a lot of great things that don't ever get recognised by any awards thing ever. And frankly, those award things, it's actually the opposite of what you think it would be. You know, those award ceremonies, they're not actually recognising artists for their brilliance. They're and making them relevant. They're actually trying to perpetuate their own relevance as an institution by attaching themselves to relevant artists.
Yes.
that they deem will,
Is a part of
will
the
now
vacuum.
validate
Yep.
their existence as an institution.
And I will agree with that until I'm nominated for a Logie.
Exactly. This is the thing. Like, it's all a bunch of bullshit. It's actually the reverse of what you would think. These things mean nothing. That's the art that means something. They attach. They now say, and then that's now a Grammy Award-winning album or an ARIA-winning album.
Yeah, of course,
So
but-
now they are associated with this good thing.
With this person being good, yeah.
But it's true. That's all good and true until you win, and then thank you to the Academy. Oh my God, I'm so thankful.
You guys are the goats.
Yeah.
Okay, well, listen, this has easily been the longest episode of the pod yet,
Yeah.
but nothing but quality. Thank you so much for being
Thank
here,
you very
Kirin.
much.
My absolute pleasure.
Absolutely amazing.
Thank
What
you.
is coming up next for you? What's in the
I have
pipeline?
a show on Friday, the 4th, April 4th. That's
do?
another sort of insurrection day. You know, some terrorist event, massacre, mass massacre event.
Not to sound like a masochist, but if something does happen on either of these
Yeah, I know,
days,
so true.
Well, I mean, then we're like Notre Dame's. You know?
yeah, so true.
But you're right.
Just keep the crowns
But
away
yeah,
from
show
these
on, the,
dates.
show
eh?
on the 4th at the Curtain. This probably will come out after then, I'd imagine. But,
No, this will probably be out tomorrow.
Oh, great. That's amazing.
Hope we get a
So
few
yeah,
people
show
down
in
there.
a couple of days at the Curtain in Melbourne. And
No, you were showing me something before that was pretty exciting.
What was that? I forgot.
The game.
Oh, yeah. I'm also launching a video game, I guess today. Whenever
let's go.
a young man, I'm going to mispronounce his last name. It's quite a common Vietnamese last name. Alex Nguyen.
Okay.
How do you spell it? N-G-Y-U-N or whatever.
Young or something.
Yeah.
There's a way to pronounce this. It's really easy.
Yeah.
And I'm just ignorant and lazy. So it's my fault. But Alex is brilliant. He saw my music video for Young Drunk Driver off the last record. Had a dream about it. Got up. Him and his brother made a video game where basically you explore the world of the video.
Wow. The hell, he just made it unprompted.
Just made it, sent it to me. We workshopped it a little bit, but largely what you see is what he just made.
Jeez.
That's
and
awesome.
I've then just been, lazy and slow moving as I am, distracted easily. Too many things going on, nothing going on. It's just sort of laid dormant again. But finally, I'm put it on USBs. I'm trying to do artwork for it. Release it as a video game on USB that you can play on Windows or
Let's go.
or Mac. You're going to be able to buy it at the show, and then I guess at some stage I'll put them up for sale online. I like the idea of it as a physical thing. I could also do it as a landing page and download it, but
digital
I don't know
download.
how to
Go about
paywall
running
that.
that.
you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a way, but I just
I don't know either.
Yeah,
Couldn't
but,
help you. Sorry.
I mean, you guys paywall this presumably.
Well, it's on Patreon, but
Okay.
yeah. I don't know if you can do it. You could do a Patreon video game,
Video
maybe.
game, yeah. Anyway, it's amazing. The breakthrough I had just came the other day. Fanula from Spike Fox Band mentioned Goat Simulator.
Yeah,
And I
great
was
game.
like, oh, because I've never played it, but the idea of it is there's no real agenda. You just are a goat. Is that truth or no?
I believe so.
Yep. You
So-
spend a bunch of time running restaurants as Guy Fieri because he's the goat. Am I right? Anyway.
Moving on. Yeah, look, I don't. There's no way to win the game. You're not fighting anyone.
It's
or killing
exploration.
anything. It's just exploration. There's Easter eggs throughout. So it's basically a
That's dope.
Kirin J simulator, or a young drunk driver simulator, and so that's how I'm going to push it. And yeah,
That's how I'm gonna push it.
that's really it.
Hey,
But it's
exciting times.
quite incredible. And maybe I don't know if with the podcast if you can have adjacent material or something, but maybe some stills from the game. I don't know.
We can throw things up on the screen.
Yep.
Yeah.
We'll see. We'll go through it. But thank you so much for joining us. Thanks for yarning and giving us all your stories and your takes and your thoughts. It's been so sick to hear as a fan and a follower for a long time, the ins and outs, and pick your brain about all of this stuff.
I appreciate it.
You've found some fun or...
Yeah. What a increasingly rarer and therefore more indulgent pleasure to just talk about myself and my work over 20 years.
That's good. That was
lovely.
awesome. Sweet. All right, well, you guys can catch Kirin at the Curtain on Friday. Keep your eyes peeled for his video game. And we have to do our introductions, mate.
Oh, yeah.
It's the one thing we do consistently on this show.
We do. It's the only bit of structure we have.
Yeah, and it's already limited. We like to leave it to the end of the episodes.
Yep.
As the show's called BLT, after Blake, Luke, and Tyler, and the sandwich, every week we pick a different inside element of a sandwich, allotting to our given initials. Obviously, your name is Kirin with a K. So, Blakey, would you like to do the honours?
Yep. Should have thought of a word.
Okay.
It's obvious, no? I've just literally eaten a sandwich with wallaby meat.
Yep. So what would you...
What is a wallaby? It's a kangaroo.
Oh, you're the kangaroo. Oh, that's good. See? Yeah, how is the guest better at this than us?
My name is Blake, and I am the Brumby of BLT.
Brumby, you're thinking of bread.
Yeah. It was just a B word that I thought of. There wasn't really any...
Isn't it bacon? But I like that you're the Brumby in this instance.
Yeah.
Well, no, I think the first episode we used
bitch.
bacon and we decided we can't reuse the words ever again.
So you're
Yeah.
going to get a new one. Have you
So
used bitch before? The bitch of the sandwich?
Bitch, I assume bitch was one from episode somewhere between 1 and 5.
Yeah, one and two.
Yeah.
He's way too alpha and he'll hurt us afterwards if we call him a bitch, so we don't do that. My name is Tyler. I am the time to get your tickets to Kirin J Callinan.
Wow.
The Curtain.
Yeah.
So this can be abstract.
Oh, yeah. Well,
it doesn't
we've been doing
abstract
this
as
for
possible.
97 episodes. We
true.
don't...
Have you used taurine?
Taurine, what is that?
It's like a
taurine.
pate.
Ooh.
No, not taurine, like an
Different
energy
thing?
drink. Taurine, French meat spread.
No, but I'm going to bank that and I'm going to bring it up in 40 episodes.
Yep.
And we'll use it then. Anyway,
Beauty.
thanks for tuning in, guys.
And I'm Kirin, the kangaroo and the meat.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, sorry, I thought we'd already done it. No.
Oh, well,
I'm
we have
glad.
now.
Okay, yep.
Lovely.
See you guys.
See you guys.
Another riveting episode. Stay curious and keep